And everyone knows.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
It's Tuesday morning and already getting towards halfway through the week. But what has not changed is traffic, and we're already seeing that is building up on Mombasa Road this morning. Hopefully it's not as a painful day as it was yesterday, but already, from all indications, traffic has already started to build up, especially around that Mlolongo towards the SGR area. We're probably going to see heightened levels of that as we go along. In Maradima, traffic is already starting to stretch out, and I'll have to take a look what it looks like in about half an hour. Coming out of Westlands already is building up also. Other parts seem to be okay for now. Thicker roads smooth into the city, in and outbound. Not an issue there right now. The streets are waking up. Hopefully you'll be where you need to be before they do. Talk to us in case you're not. SpiceFMKE on Twitter, that's how you can get in touch. Text on 40127. Let's get this Tuesday started off right.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to
coming up
start
to
your
7
day.
minutes after 6, a very good morning to you. How are you doing? It's Tuesday, the 17th day of August, 2021. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Eric Latif, Nduoko, and C.T. Muga is in the house. Good morning, C.T.
Morning, Eric.
How are you?
Fine.
You went to harvest Proverbs yesterday. Okay. Umekuja na gunia mzima.
Yes, lakini gunia ambayo haina shimo, meaning a sack which doesn't have a hole. That is the one I have come with.
Very good. Very good. Welcome back, brother.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, brother. Thank you, son.
Karibu.
Welcome.
Karibu. Nduoko.
Yeah.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you. You well?
And how are you?
I am very well, thank you.
You know, on this day,
Yeah.
many moons ago, should I add one more many?
Can add one more moon.
Many moons ago, a young man, boy, baby.
All right. Since we are waxing lyrically, many moons ago, which were accompanied by many sunsets ago. Please carry on.
No, but we need to be clear whether it was a sunset, sunrise, or, the moon
Okay,
shining at
why
that
don't
point.
we just make it wholesome? Many moons ago, many sunsets ago, and many sunrises ago.
And starlit nights.
Ago.
Ago.
Okay, now let's move forward.
Eric Latif was born, and the world is a better place because of that.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Eric.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I thank you.
You like the introduction of that story?
Oh, yes. That's a good introduction.
You must take birthdays seriously.
Yes, so. It's not a small wala.
No, it's not. It's a big thing.
It's not, first of all, when is the birthday of somebody as pleasant and as generous as Eric? Me, I'm just looking forward to the present I'm going to get.
Your gift, Abi. Eric
birthday.
is the gift that just keeps on giving. I'm telling you.
When's your,
On such a lovely day,
which continent are we in, my sister?
you must receive
Yeah,
a
when it's your
gift.
birthday, what do? You give
give
people
people.
things. Yeah, precisely.
And you invite them to come and eat in your house.
You know, I was born today, so
You were
come
doing
for a
what?
feast.
You were doing what?
I was born today, so come for a feast. You know? This is what happens in African society. Yes. Call you for a feast because it's my birthday. Yes. Yeah, very many moons ago. I turned 44 today. And as I was driving to work today, I was actually reflecting, and it occurred to me that I've been doing what I'm doing now for more than half of my life. And I was grateful to God for that.
And you still loving it?
Oh, yes.
That's a good thing.
Well,
Many
I
people
still
aren't.
love it.
Isn't it obvious this guy likes his job? I mean, tell me, how many people have this opportunity to lord it over the other people? Just 2 people in the room and him and is the boss. Yes. And us, we're just there. Yes, Eric?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, Eric.
How would you like me to deliver
Yes,
it?
yes, Eric.
I'm just
I know most of our listeners don't know this, but this is what happens before we actually start talking and sounding confident.
hey.
The small opportunities in life. Yes. This is how they
Use
come.
them.
Kabisa. We'll have interesting conversations today. So at 8 o'clock, we'll have a governor in the studio, and this is the Kisii Governor, James Ongwae. So he is a second-term governor. He's been there since the beginning of devolution. So we'll be doing a scorecard. How has devolution been and performed since you took over, for example, as governor of Kisii, and he's been among those who've been leading the Council of Governors? He'll be here. We'll be talking about that as they're gearing up for the annual devolution conference in Makueni County next week. At 7, we'll have a conversation about finance.
Yep.
Yes? And somebody will be here to tell us about FX trading and how to make sure that you have very many opportunities of making money just by sitting where you are and pressing buttons. So he'll be here to press the buttons and show us how to make money. Hopefully by the time he leaves,
Are we going to make some money today?
that's how I'm hoping.
It's very interesting.
If we don't make money today, then there's whatever he'll be telling us.
What business is this individual in again?
Yeah.
Dealing and trading in?
Finance.
And finance.
Hey,
Pesa.
just wait.
Huh?
That man is going to tell us how we give him 500 shillings, and next week we have 50,000.
Bas.
That's it. Without moving.
Bas.
The movement has been done. I have removed my 500 shillings and I've given
I'm
him.
giving him
Now it's up to him to move.
That movement has already happened.
Yes.
multiplied. Yes. And then at 9 o'clock, we'll have a conversation with the Laikipia North MP, Sarah Korere. There's been violence in Laikipia. It's not the first time, but as we see in all these places around the country, even as we were having a conversation with NCIC the other day, elections approaching, violence spikes.
Escalates. Yes.
So there's violence in Laikipia. And these are some of those stories that are just not covered. You find that families have lost their loved ones. Children have been killed by people who are marauding as, cattle rustlers, or people who are just calling themselves herdsmen, but they are armed and heavily armed. What's happening there? We'll be putting the MP to task to explain to us exactly what's going on. Meanwhile, fellow Kenyans.
Fellow Kenyans, unfortunately, 679 of fellow Kenyans reported with cases of COVID-19 yesterday, being from a sample size of 5,693. 11.9 is the positivity rate from that particular sample size, and 1,550 recover and been sent home, and unfortunately 10 more deaths. They did not happen yesterday, but they succumbed on diverse dates. The CS Ministry of Health told us that 1,981 patients are admitted in various health facilities countrywide. 9,602 are under the home-based isolation and care program. So that's what we're looking at. Are we still waiting for vaccines? Yes, we are. Are the ones that are available just available for a few? Yes, they are. We are now almost getting towards the last week of August. We had been told by the end of July that
Get 1 million
we would
plus.
get 1 million plus vaccines in the country. And then at the end of August, which is in the next, what are we on today? 17th? In the next 14 days, we should have received about 13 million. Smoke, white smoke.
Well, this
Nada.
1 million are coming from America.
Yes. America is having problems at the moment. America's having conversations about booster jabs now, a third jab. So the question is, will they be able then still, despite their promise, be able to give over these donations to other countries when suggestions are being made of a booster jab that they need where they thought that they were home and dry?
I could suggest something to them. There's this AstraZeneca, which they've just been storing and not using. That one.
They should give us.
Maybe they'll tell you it expired.
No, even if it's just 1 week before it expires.
Can still use it.
Yeah.
Even 3 months after.
Yeah.
You just bring.
It's best before, not.
The
Abi?
thing is,
Okay.
one could argue they have other priorities.
It's at the moment.
Yes.
It's true.
But these Western countries, and you look, do they make a promise and keep a promise on time?
I like your
the
question.
G7 sat and talked about, we're going to be donating X number of vaccines to the COVAX and then to these little poor countries. Conversation that happened 2 months ago. America, Biden, we're going to give out the vaccines. What is it?
Hasn't happened. Nothing.
Eric, your question is...
We can send Kenya Airways.
Transport, we can do.
And secondly, we don't have one plane.
Tuko na nyingi.
We have many. Some are just parked, by the way, just in case they didn't know. And unlike them who have to park their planes in the desert, ours are just parked here at JKIA. We have enough space. But of significance, I would like to ask this question. What do they really owe us?
Oh, in terms of this whole COVID vaccine?
No, yes, beyond the promise.
Nothing.
Precisely. So they don't even need to make the promise.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. So why do they make the promise?
Yeah.
They can just simply keep quiet and let us languish in our misery.
And then surprise you with...
Yeah, actually, what began as a surprise is now becoming the norm. The surprise was, we thought they had said, meaning in the past when they have said. But what do we go by? We look at the response to Ebola. We look at the response to HIV. And I'm reminded of something. Huh? A friend of mine, someone with whom we work, once told me this, those many years ago when HIV was really scaring the living daylights out of people. And this is a very senior scientist. And she said, don't ever be fooled for a single second. All this effort is so that we build a wall so that this HIV doesn't leave our shores and go elsewhere. Said whenever these people support you, it's not for your sake.
Of course not. It's within their interest.
So that brings me to this question, having thought about what I was told those many years ago. What do they benefit by giving us the vaccines?
They're building your herd immunity so when they come visit you,
they won't get sick.
It's 16 minutes after 6. Let's take this break. We'll take a look at the weather forecast for today in the country and around the world, and then look at the newspaper headlines. Good morning. Kenya's biggest conversation is live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Where are you? Say hello. We'll be acknowledging you shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The name is NCBA, and the numbers that matter to you matter to us. Get your NCBA asset finance loan approved in just 24 hours, as well as your car insurance, and start counting the journeys with your loved ones. NCBA Bank. Go for it. NCBA Bank is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
It's drizzling in parts of Nairobi this morning at 14 degrees. It'll go to highs of 21 today. 13 and light rain in Nyeri, highs of 19. 23 will be the high in Nakuru. It's mostly clear at 13. We'll see highs of 22 in Eldoret, currently clear at 12. 17 degrees and clear in Kisumu, highs of 28, coming back down to lows of 17. It's 16 degrees and clear in Kakamega, with highs of 27. We'll see lows of 14 and 22 light rainy in Mombasa, highs of 28. Coming back down to lows of 22 through the day. It's also raining in Malindi at 24. We'll see highs of 28. 26 will be the high in a mostly clear Kampala, currently at 18 degrees. Dar es Salaam is wet this morning at 22. Highs of 29 and lows of 21. 8 degrees, a chilly morning in Johannesburg. Highs of 20. We'll see highs of 29 in Lagos. It's mostly clear at 25. And 23 is mostly cloudy in Kinshasa, with highs of 31 and lows of 23. Out east in Beijing, it's sunny at 28, well into the afternoon. Highs of 29 and lows of 20. Clear conditions in Paris. Temperatures are dropping slightly at 13. It'll go to highs of 21. Mostly cloudy at 14 in London. Highs of 20. And in New York, still Monday night, it's clear, however, at 24. Coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 27 and lows of 23.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Was online.
Yes, it is. Quite a number of people online this morning. Sir Haron is tuned in. He's back in Kisumu. And he says, good morning, guys, and happy birthday, Latif. Kisumu wishes you a fantastic day. The whole of Kisumu.
Asante sana. Yes.
Cities are baying your praises. Good morning, SpiceFM. Tuned in from this cold Kisumu, the Duke of Nandi, and says, meanwhile, let's pray for the departed souls in the hands of police. True. Gasheri Wambijiwe says, good morning, Spice team. Happy birthday, Eric. Tuned in from Thika Road, always listening to healthy conversations. Keep up the good work. Asante sana. Kelvin Courier is tuned in and says, what do you think about the police killing the youth and stories itapotetu Evo in a few weeks in the name of elections and vaccines? Well, interesting outlook.
Yep.
Raphael Conrad Mwembe says, Nakuru is back. I see CT is back. Nakuru is locked in as always. I see CT is back. CT, we see you. Ciro Bin Ciro's tuned in from, says good morning, elders, and says good morning, Situation Room. Afi Agboga is tuned in from Ghana. Good morning to you. And Lusaka, Zambia is where Paul Washinga is tuned in from this morning. Rogers Vele is tuned in from Malindi Charity as well, tuned in this morning. George Ogola says, good morning, lady and gentlemen, as you go through our daily tribulations. Mombasa is listening. Why must they be tribulations? My goodness. Watching from Kampala, that's where Wenzururu Nason is tuned in from. Dorcas Kimother says, Karibu City with the whole Gunia of Proverbs.
The wholeless.
Wholeless, right. The wholeless Gunia of Proverbs. Happy birthday, Latif. Nakutumia Madafu Gunia.
Good.
Very
Now that,
good.
I think this gentleman has
Lady
packed off.
Dorcas.
Lady?
Yeah.
Lady? Well, in honor of the sack, I will have another proverb which has a sack in it.
Voila. I can't wait. Lape Omar is tuned in from Malindi. Me loving the show. Fantastic. Dan Mburu wishes you happy birthday, Eric. Bishogoro Omkaya is also tuned in today. Quite a number of people online today. My goodness. Clinton Havertz tuned in from Kakamega. Chris Babake also tuned in from Gong this morning. Jack Meyer tuned in from Namibia this morning. David Subukia as well from Subukia. And can't get to all of you this morning, but we see you and thank you for joining us today.
Welcome to the Situation Room, everybody, and we're glad that you're tuned in. CT, today's sack of Proverbs.
You cannot steal the head of a goat from a butcher and put it in a sack, for the horns will stick out.
You cannot steal the head of a goat from a butcher and
put it
in a sack, for the horns will stick out.
Can you steal the ribs? That's where the meat is. Steal the other part. Forget the head.
You clearly haven't eaten a goat's head.
I have. In our language, it's called isiewu ngwongwo. Isiewu is a pepper soup made out of the head of a goat. My friend, don't play.
I shouldn't joke with you.
No, don't play with me.
Isiewu.
Isiewu.
Ngwongwo. The ngwongwo part now.
Yes,
That's
Ngwongwo
where-
part.
Isi is head.
That's where the
And then Ngwongwo?
Isi is head.
the
Ewu is
ulimi.
goat. Now ngwongwo is the soup made out of it. Ngwongwo isiewu.
So Eric, if someone jokes with you,
Ewu, you call them
tell
ewu.
that person you'll go and save them.
Yes. Ngwongwo. Don't joke. Don't joke. Let's look at the headlines. And as we do that, do you have a telecom line and you'd like to access the Standard e-paper? Please do so by dialing star 550 star 1 hash. 20 bob daily, and it's only 20 shillings. And then if you want the Nairobian, star 550 star 2 hash. If you'd like the daily newspaper pullouts, today is Tuesday, it's a Financial Standard, star 550 star 3 hash for 5 shillings daily. All these is deducted from your airtime on a daily basis. In the headlines.
There's a lot to.
Right?
As Oka, Komoka can't decide what they're doing,
Yeah.
a lady in Kuresoi faked a pregnancy and she buys a baby then to cover her tracks. Meanwhile, in terms of desperation, for 9 months, 31-year-old Wesley Rono acted a fool as his wife, Patricia, faked pregnancy. Acted a fool. And when his 25-year-old wife came home with a baby in her arms, Mr. Rono decided to end his wife's deception show. The couple from Ongwae in Kuresoi North constituency, Nakuru County, were childless for 5 years, so the woman bought a baby. Problem, solution, solved. An act that has now not only landed her in trouble with the law, but left her marriage hanging by a thread. When my wife broke the news to me in December 2020 that she was expecting our first child, I was very excited. However, soon afterwards, I noticed she was stuffing clothes around her belly to give an impression that she was expectant. The farmer and small-time businessman in Kuresoi Trading Center, despite figuring out the deception, decided to play it cool. Whenever I wanted to touch her belly to feel the baby bump, my wife would get angry. She wouldn't even allow me to touch or come close to her. Even though he already knew that his wife wasn't pregnant, Rono said he provided everything his wife asked for during the 9-month period. This included money to go for the fake prenatal clinics and also money to buy clothes for the baby and other essentials. Rono said on the 8th of August, the due date of the purported delivery, his wife asked him for money to go to Kericho County Hospital. She left by herself, promising to call and update me about the delivery progress. I was shocked when she called later in the evening telling me that she had delivered a baby and was already at Chepsoyin Trading Center on her way back home.
Wow.
I'm telling you, my wife's audacity stunned me even more. Even the strongest woman in the world cannot have the strength to immediately wake up after the maternity bed after 30 minutes of giving birth and board a public vehicle to return home. Rono said he sat back and waited for his wife to bring the baby home. But his wife decided to go to her paternal home in Londiani, Kipkelion East constituency, to recuperate for a few days. She finally showed up 4 days later, carrying a baby boy in her arms. When I arrived home that evening, I found her with a baby who didn't look like a 4-year-old child. That's when Rono decided to end the 9-month show by reporting the case at the police station on the 12th of August. The entries in the prenatal book were forgeries. My wife had tried to fool me, which is unforgivable. Mr. Rono confessed that she was barren. So Mrs. Rono confessed that she was barren and that the baby now in the custody of Kericho police gender officers was not her biological child. I had heard from villagers about an old woman in Kiptororo village who sells children. I visited her and told her of my wish. She asked me for 50,000 shillings to give me a baby. Mrs. Rono said she paid 2,600 shillings deposit, and the day she visited the suspected child trafficker at her home. Since Mrs. Rono didn't have cash, the woman agreed to exchange the baby with a tea seedling worth the amount. But when police officers visited the suspect's home, they noticed she had recently planted tea on a portion of her land. The suspect is also said to be notorious for procuring abortions in the village.
Very many angles to this story.
Very many.
The one that strikes me is one for Mrs. Rono, because with everything else, I feel for her. She says, what forced me to do it was just a desire to have a baby I can call my own and save my marriage.
Yeah.
She discovered that she was barren in 2015 after her visit to a gynecologist. It's a pressure. The societal pressure. You were married so many years ago, you guys still haven't gotten a baby. There's no baby crying in that household. What's wrong with you? it drives you to such lengths.
Sure, and she did everything. Just look at it. She was articulate. She ticked off all the boxes. She got a prenatal book on the prenatal day. She went to hospital. She even asked her husband for money to be able to go for these visits. She bought clothes. She prepared like somebody who was going to have a child. She had ticked every box. So you can imagine in her mind, she had already played this thing out that was going to save her marriage.
Yep.
And it turned out to be the one thing that then destroyed it.
Yep. And by the time you're seeing all these things happening, it's because there's a lot of pressure that's on her. She says she underwent medical operations to unblock her fallopian tubes in 2018. Still, she could not conceive. She went through everything, got tested. She was told, let's try to go through this operation. Operation done, not successful. And all these things she's not telling her husband.
Nope.
Right? She can't come home and say, you know what, I've just come from the hospital and this is what the doctors have told me.
For fear that he might leave her, for fear that there might be pressure on him by his family members to leave her and find somebody who could.
And she'll be ostracized.
You know, this is now where the many angles you spoke of come in. Because I'm thinking many medical practitioners are not trained in counseling. They're just not trained. They have a trade, they apply it as best as they can. Yes. Why I mentioned the idea, the concept of counseling, is that a case like this, a counselor would then seek to find a way of getting this lady to actually talk to her husband and or tell her, look, because she has to accept, can you bring your husband in so that we can have this discussion? Because much as she went through all those tests and they tried the other, I do not hear of a case in which the husband also
was tested.
Yeah.
Yes. You in these matters, you don't quickly point in one direction and say the fault lies here. It is unwise to do that because you honestly don't actually know. And with modern science, my friend, the fact that you have a problem doesn't mean that problem cannot be resolved.
Absolutely.
No.
There's a way.
There is, yes. But at the heart of this, how do you get couples to actually have a discussion about these things?
Yeah.
Because that's true. These conversations are not taking place. The stories that you see of people who walked the walk, for example, are actually on the lower side. It's the lower percentage of people who are having a conversation amongst themselves and then figuring it out. Another interesting angle about this story is that there's a woman sitting in this village who is known to sell babies.
Yep.
I mean, for goodness sake.
Procure abortions and sell babies.
She's sitting in her home. Everybody knows, well, you want that's the person who's going to sort it out. And everybody has
But there's something else which is alluded to here. If she sells babies, then people bring babies to her.
Yes, and people buy from her.
Yes. So the question is, what sort of people would bring babies to her?
Those who are procuring abortions because they do not want the baby and for whatever reason. All right? So come, procure an abortion, leave a baby. Because by the time we're talking about a baby, it's basically taking you through birth.
Yes.
So there's procuring abortion and then there's delivering a baby, and all those things are happening in Kuresoi.
You know, this is the angle. But by the time we are presenting this, or it's being presented as this, what she does, you will find in the community she's known as a midwife.
Yep.
Yes, a different title.
Yes, she's also known. But remember, a story such as this one here, there would have been the angle of her practice has caused harm or death.
Yep.
You don't hear of it.
Yep.
And then ask yourself, with this rampant impregnation of young girls that we hear, where do these children go? Because many of them go full-time. Where do these children go?
But then they don't end up being mothers. And when I say that, I mean that they don't stay with their children.
No.
Where are these children taken?
Then there's these societal norms that we must again relook at. Okay? Remember the days when a child got pregnant? End of school for you.
Yep.
At least that one had tapered down. But now, parents understanding how to manage children, young girls who actually get pregnant. Because the mindset in the 21st century still seems to be not very different from what it was before. You get into how dare you? Now, it's already happened the how dare you story. You know that one, that horse bolted a long time ago.
Yeah, it doesn't play, it doesn't feature. There's also a big issue here. This woman is meeting a need.
Otherwise, she wouldn't be there.
Yep. She's meeting a need. And for me, the need here is because of lack of clarity on the laws and procedures of adoption.
Yes.
This particular lady, Mrs. Ngeno, could have been taken through a proper adoption process where you're told, okay, so you don't have to go through all this. This is how you adopt a child.
Yes. Because it's the same thing if you look at it.
Yep. That's what she's
This
done.
is what she was looking for.
She basically just wants to bring up a child.
A child.
That's it. 25 minutes to 7. Let's take a break and see how the roads are looking like, and then we'll look at other headlines. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul,
And just like that,
and
what 30 minutes can do on a Tuesday morning, there's traffic everywhere.
listening to
Langata Road is
Spice
already
FM.
piling up, getting to the roundabout at Timor. You can go then towards Bagathi Way. It shouldn't be too much of an issue right now as you're trying to get to the City Mortuary roundabout. Aerodrome Road also building up as you're getting to that roundabout, and then Bunyala Road coming in from the city centre. It looks kind of crazy as you're joining from Haile Selassie Avenue this morning. We're also looking at Jogo Road, quite some traffic right around the Makadara train station. Heading out then towards the roundabout and then spilling onto Landis Road, you'll have some traffic. At the Kamkunji roundabout, getting into the CBD, it's already a mess. And Mombasa Road, yes, has piled up from the Way Bridge to the SGR. Because of that diversion that's there. There's only one lane now available for use this morning, and we are going to have to sit through this one because is there an alternative? Unfortunately, at the moment, there is not. We're also looking at traffic piling up on Thika Road. Survey, though, doesn't look too bad until you get just past it there. Joining from Kiambu Road, connecting with Muthui Square, we'll see some traffic this morning, and we're not yet in traffic hour officially. So let's keep an eye on things. It's bound to get a little bit crazier this Tuesday morning. Let's help each other out, shall we? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let us know where you might be stuck or you find a good route to use. Don't forget, the bypass is up for use this morning and they're doing good right now.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
23
FM,
minutes to 7.
Nairobi.
So, when did those young men die in Kenjokoma, Embu? Yeah?
2 weeks ago now.
Yes. They died, they were buried, the community protested, they came out and complained. Now, all the people that should have been working are now working. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority yesterday released a preliminary report where they were basically just calling for the suspension, immediate suspension of the 6 officers who were involved in this. In a statement released yesterday, a report recommended the immediate suspension of the 6 officers linked to the deaths pending investigation. They say the outcome of this investigation has established a prima facie case against 6 police officers for the offense of murder. The statement detailed recommendations that include having the officers immediately relieved of their duties, pending the outcome of an independent review of the findings that will be forwarded to the DPP. As it stands now, according to the statement released by Chairperson of IPOA, Anne Makori, the 6 officers face a capital offence, murder. This recommendation is not likely to take a different direction. That the officers surrender any government stores in their possession, including firearms, within the shortest time possible. That the officers and their commanders, who have since been interrogated and their statements recorded, be available around the clock for further assistance to IPOA investigators when called upon. So that is one agency, right? The Director of Public Prosecutions, Noordin Haji, says the deaths of these two gentlemen has elicited public anger and equally drawn the attention of my office. He says the fact that the two deaths ostensibly occurred while the two were in police custody calls for a full and fair investigation to establish the circumstances that led to their deaths. He says, Noordin Haji, based on the preliminary investigation report forwarded by the Inspector General, I am shortly directing the IG to immediately arrest and arraign in court in Nairobi all officers involved pending investigations by IPOA to avoid any interference with evidence and or intimidation of witnesses. He says his office is reliably informed that IPOA is finalizing investigations into the matter. He also noted that the Internal Affairs Unit of the National Police Service had launched their own inquiries into the possible culpability of the officers, and the IG had forwarded to his office a file of preliminary findings which is under urgent scrutiny and review. Some will say this is a good way to go, and I'll say nonsense. Why did it take so long? The IG of police says action has been taken. IPOA says action has been taken. The Deputy Inspector General of Police went to Kianjokoma and addressed the residents there and said, do not worry, we have removed these officers, we've transferred them. Not, we have suspended them. IPOA could have said, wait, there's a matter that has happened here. Suspend these officers as we commence investigations. Yep. They did not. The DPP, who is very active on social media, where he says he picked this story, even on media where he says he picked this story, could have picked this story on the second day and said, based on the aforegoing, I hereby direct the IG of police to commence immediate investigations, and I recommend that pending investigations, these officers be arraigned in court in Nairobi. He did not. This whole story is because of public pressure.
Absolutely.
They were not doing their jobs.
So suddenly this is the right thing to do because they've had a prick of conscience or what? This could have happened. What we are seeing now, everybody running around chasing their tails, saying let's prosecute prima facie and let's do this, that, the other thing. This could have been done a long time ago.
Yeah.
This could have been done because this happened Sunday night. Monday morning is when we saw the first, 2 weeks ago, Monday morning is when we saw the first stories of this. If really what they're saying they believe today to be the case was believed then, this action should have been taken on that day. So now you're saying that you're holding them prima facie right now. This first impression could have been on that day.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have taken public pressure in this manner for this to happen. So are we then saying that every time something like this happens, until and unless the public raise arms and make noise, that the services that are supposed to be there for the protection of the people will not do their job or hold on to the responsibility until there's noise?
There is a case last year, I believe, at Mama Lucy Hospital. There was the med soup who had been transferred to that hospital barely a week into the transfer. Policeman
Descended on her.
Yes. Put her in custody for 7 days.
Direct to jail.
In that case, without asking any questions.
Direct. And we asked here, but wait. This lady has just reported. And the story as we heard it, or as was reported, was this has been going on for some time. So, has been going on for some time. She is here barely a week. How do you tie in these two? There was an if and but. Again, there was a huge hue and cry.
Yep.
A huge hue and cry.
And all this action, by the way, is after a story has been aired by the BBC.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
When the BBC was acting on this story, working on the story, they involved the police.
Yes, they did.
But the police never took any action.
No, they didn't.
There was one day, one of the days of this story, the journalist who was doing the story was in the company of police, going from place
to place.
So, now, how do you determine what has more weight than the other? 2 young people are dead. Dead. Not injured, dead.
Dead.
Surely, I would assume that the simplest thing here would be, folks, you are the people who are involved, step aside.
Yes. An investigation needs to happen
Yes.
here. The last person to be seen with these people
Yes.
is a police officer.
Yes. Not be transferred. No, step aside.
Step aside first
Yes.
and make sure you don't interfere with the investigation.
Step aside completely.
Surely.
Anyway.
This is just... It's unfortunate that, some of these officers that should be doing their job and they appear to be protecting rogue members of the police service.
But then it's a scratch my back and I'll scratch yours mentality. Remember, when people talk about corruption and people talk about impunity, it isn't nestled somewhere in a corner. No. It's like an infectious disease. It spreads through the system. And this is one of those things where it's like a conspiracy. Nobody really talks about it, but everybody knows what you should do or shouldn't do. Yeah. It's never really discussed in public. But you will keep quiet because you never know when you might want that person to keep quiet on your behalf.
Yes. Scratch my back, I scratch yours. It's 7:15. Let's scratch this back and then you'll scratch ours again. Taking a quick break and then we'll come back and look at more headlines. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Gone are the days when hiring should be about hitting the brick wall, because we understand how much it means to have the ideal candidate working for you and your organization. That's why at Standard Jobs website, we offer the complete employer dashboard that lets you interact fully with applicants, lets you track the full hiring process through a qualified specific smart search tool. What's more, we offer a full-on custom branded page that lets your company stand out with your own to choose custom page. So visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/jobs today and let's help you find the next ideal candidate for you.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
What are you looking at?
Mornings done right.
Look at two things. I am looking, Business Daily, got it.
Yes.
I'm looking at how this war that has taken place in Afghanistan has been affecting us as Kenyans. And since 2015, the Kenyan exports to Afghanistan, which was at that point 14.5 billion, has been shrinking slowly until 2019, when it moved from that 14 I was talking about, it's now at 3.6. Now you ask,
3.6 billion.
It's billion Kenyan shillings.
What are we exporting? Tea?
We export coffee, tea, spices, rubber, textiles, edible vegetables, as if there's some unedible vegetables, pharmaceuticals. That's what we export. Yes.
And it's been shrinking.
It's been shrinking. But if you look back, it's more or less when that so-called war in Afghanistan, I'm calling it so-called, because if you look at the genesis of it, where it began, it didn't begin with the U.S. troops coming to Afghanistan. No. It began when the Russians and the Mujahideen were having a go at it.
You could even take it beyond that.
Oh, no. The factional fights that they were having among themselves, those are what would have been referred to as tribal wars. Okay? But now the internationalization of it was brought in by the Russians. Who were there for 9 years before they eventually left. But that's a story for another day. Now, why I consider this to be important is that there are also very many Kenyans who actually live and work in Afghanistan. Some are employed by international agencies, some have found work there. Kenyans will find work everywhere. Now, why am I pointing to this? Yes, our exports have been shrinking slowly. I do not hear of any plans to evacuate our citizens who are there. That's what I was getting to.
Yeah. There's a call on Kenya's foreign ministry to speak of the efforts that they're making to evacuate any Kenyans, because we know that there are some Kenyans who've been working in Afghanistan. And basically saying, do those Kenyans feel that they'd like to come back home? Then there's an opportunity for them to come back home. Should they want to come back home? Because let's not just assume that because we are seeing people running into the airport and America is evacuating its people and the West are evacuating, that even the Kenyans who are there want to leave. Maybe they're sitting there and their situational analysis is, we'll be fine. We'll wait this out. We'll ride out the wave. Yeah, it's a big one. There's a girl who scored 400 marks in KCPE. She's yet to join high school because of lack of school fees. Guess which county? Kwale County. No. Lunga Lunga is in Kwale, isn't it?
It is in Kwale.
Okay. Fatma Kwekwe Mongo escaped 2 attempts to marry her off in pursuit of education despite strong opposition from her father. And her efforts bore fruit as she scored 400 marks in KCPE. This girl is 18 years old and she's from Magojoni village in Mwereni location, Lunga Lunga sub-county. She's yet to join Form 1 due to lack of school fees. The girl, who's been living with her grandmother at Mtomondoni in Mtwapa, Kilifi County since she was 10 years after she fled from her intended suitors, was offered a place at Butere Girls High School but has not reported weeks after schools opened. Now, Butere Girls is a national school. 400 marks, straight automatic national school.
Injection.
We caught up with Fatima yesterday. This is the Standard reporter Patrick Beja, who says they caught up with Fatima yesterday at her former primary school, Havila Academy in Mtwapa, in the company of her grandmother, Damatsuma, and head teacher Eric Kai, as she pondered on her fate. She told us that after she escaped the marriage attempts, she sought refuge with her grandmother, who took her to school, but the elderly woman is now sick and jobless, and hence unable to pay her school fees. My father made it clear he would not take daughters to school. He took dowry from some man when I was in class 3 in Mtwapa and from a second man when I was in class 5, but I escaped both attempts to be married off. The grandmother says she tricked her son-in-law when Fatima was 10 years to allow the girl to come and help me with house chores, and that's how she was able to enroll into class 1 at Havila School. 18 years have just done their Form 4.
Yes.
18 years Fatima has just done her KCPE and scored impressively, not just excellently, 400 marks. She's yet to join Form 1 because at his school fees. What nonsense is this? Now, she was in a school in Havila Academy in Mtwapa. She lives in Mtwapa. That's in Kilifi County. Her folks are in Kwale County. According to the head teacher, he sought the intervention of Mtwapa police when the girl's father tried to force her out of school in class 5. Kai said he decided to offer the girl free education in class 7 and 8 because her grandmother could not afford it. They've reported Fatuma's plight to the Kwale County government for help, but they were referred to a commercial bank in Ukunda. We have made the scholarship application and we're waiting for their response. Me, I don't know.
I don't know.
Me, I don't know.
Why don't I add to the list of things that you might not know? There is a story in the Star that has caught my attention, and it's very interesting indeed. It's on page 12, business. The headline reads as follows: Disquiet at road agencies as MPs drop engineering skill for DG job.
Okay.
This is how it goes. Disquiet has rocked the country's roads agencies following proposed changes in the law governing the sector to allow any profession to head the entities. And when they say any professions, the law wants to allow people with a postgraduate degree in engineering, architecture, finance, accounts, management, law, or related field with a university recognized in Kenya to lead the agencies. Okay, now let me read the pushback, okay? It is us who know, this is a quotation from people who belong to that fraternity of civil engineers. It is us who know what items are needed for roadworks, for example. How will an accountant tell which materials are quoted in a bill of quantities as required? A senior official said mentioned to one of the writers from the Star. The buck stops the Director General. You can imagine the disaster that will follow as they are likely to approve projects or budgets from a position of no information. We already have disaster, and then there are all these engineers and all these informed people. You are asking you're telling us that a management position at the head of an agency, management. This is not an engineering position. No, it's management.
Must be an engineer so that you understand bill of quantities.
You don't need to be an engineer to understand bill of quantities. You just need to understand what a bill of quantities is. No, actually, you honestly don't. You don't. The studying puts you really at the front of the queue when it comes to understanding everything there is to do with the actual building of a road. We're talking management. Different kettle of fish.
Absolutely. Speaking of management, county workers say they feel safer with their pensions under the Treasury than under governors. County staff have broken ranks with their governors by supporting national government plans to place the management of their pensions under the Treasury. The Kenya County Government Workers Union, KCGWU, have asked the Council of Governors to keep off the issue as they are not their employers, but just an entity under intergovernmental authority. The COG had opposed the national government's plan to place the 60 billion shilling fund under the Treasury and monitored by the Auditor General. This follows a July 16th letter by the head of Public Service, Joseph Kinyua, to senior government officials that said the local authority's pension plan, LAP Trust, and its affiliate, the County Pension Fund, should be under the State Corporation Act. The COG claimed that the plan was to take over the multi-billion shilling schemes, arguing that they are exempted under Section 2 of the State Corporations Act. This means the schemes are unincorporated and therefore fall under the County Government Act. The Secretary General, Robert Duba, of the union, threw his weight behind Mr. Kinyua's directive, saying the scheme should be under the Treasury and not under the Ministry of Devolution because LAP Trust and county pension funds are public entities. The underlying story here is that they would rather, or rather that they trust the national government more than they do the county government.
These are some workers, though.
These are some workers, not all.
Yes, they're the ones who've managed to get the limelight. I wanted to just mention something before we leave that topic I was mentioning. If you look at the way hospitals are run throughout this country for the longest time, the secretaries, meaning the people who actually manage administration of the hospitals, are not doctors.
No.
They've never been. I mean, you may come across a doctor every once in a while, but they're not. Because the day-to-day running of that institution has to do with everything else other than the practice of medicine.
Yeah.
Yes. The practice of medicine is left to the experts,
Yep.
to the people who actually understand medicine.
I also don't really see who are about. I mean, if you're talking about the Director General of Kenha, of Kura, of Kera, being, we're talking about somebody who can be an engineer, can be an accountant, can be any of these other things, can be an architect. It's fine. You'll just make sure that you say the senior engineer, the person below them, then must be from engineering. You can say there'll be directorates. There's a directorate of engineering, directorate of finance, or whatever, but it's a big deal, man. Hey.
Well, this debate, I think, is ongoing, but the Parliament seems very determined to pass this law.
Yeah. Let's see how they push back, whether they get any pushback. Today is the day, by the way. Today
It is
the day. And the day today is the day when the under 20 World Under 20 Athletics Championships should be beginning.
tomorrow,
It's tomorrow. It's tomorrow.
18th.
Stage set for grand opening. The long wait is finally over. Postponed for 1 year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the opening ceremony of the 2021 World Athletics Under 20 Championships will take place this evening at the Moi Sports Centre, Kasarani. It'll be a great honor and privilege for First Lady Margaret Kenyatta, who will, for the second time, preside over the opening ceremony of the second largest track and field event to be held on African soil. The First Lady presided over the opening ceremony of the 2017 World Athletics Under-18 Championships that were held from July 12th to 16th at the same venue, with 60,000 spectators attending the last day. Over 10,000 fans were turned away, and World Athletics declared the event one of the most successful of ever of this kind of event. So here we are. Tonight, there'll be the opening ceremony. It's all colorful. It's all everything else. But how many people know this is happening? It's not even... So the Nation is going to be airing this. But the Nation newspaper, on the front page, nothing at all talks about World Under 20 Athletics Championships at all on the front page of the Nation.
No.
Nothing at all on the back page of the Nation. Then they give it you some 2-page coverage at the back.
May I join you in that litany, please? The Star has followed suit. What they have as the headline is something a little more dramatic than athletics. And this is how it reads. I was beaten, stripped in top hotel.
Medical in Tori.
Yes. Glimmer of hope. You know something?
The Standard, so nothing as well. Keep it right here. Just remember, with everything else happening, Oka going where, and forget about Oka. Today, let's look at athletics taking place on our soil. Good morning. 8:07 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The main suspect in the murder of 4 people, including 2 brothers in Kitengela, has been arrested. Benson Melonye Olimugai has been arrested in Kitengela, where he had been hiding since the incident last week. Brothers Fred Murithi and Victor Mwangi were killed along with their cousins Nicholas Musa and Mike George while visiting a relative to celebrate his birthday. It was reported that the leaders of the Nyumba Kumi led the attack on the 4. Benson Melonye is expected to help police arrest others who have not yet been arrested. The names of 6 police officers expected to be charged with the murder of 2 brothers in Embu County are expected to be released at any time from today when they will be presented in court. According to Eastern Region Administrative Coordinator Isaiah Nakuru, Director of the Public Prosecutions Nordin Haji and Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutembai will decide the fate of the 6 after the IPOA has completed its duties and submitted its file.
We are awaiting the direction from ODPP, and once we get that confirmation, we'll be able to tell you and give you the names of the suspects. We have to tell you the truth, but for now, na kuhakikishia wananchi wote ama Kenya kwa jumla ni kwamba hatua itachukuliwa na hakuna mtu ambaye ataachwa.
These as the DPP has already approved the 6 to be charged with murder. ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi has assured Kenyans that the direction he will take on his journey to State House will be one that will focus on improving the lives of all Kenyans. Speaking when he arrived in Naivasha for the One Kenya Alliance, Mudavadi said the full direction to be taken will be given after the meeting.
Tujipange na wajumbe wetu kwa sababu hii ni vyama lazima vijipange pia. Sio tu ati kwa sababu ni competition. Kwa hivyo vyama pia lazima vijipange kwa sababu tutahitaji wajumbe, tutahitaji MCAs, governor na kadhalika. Kwa hivyo hii ni holistic approach.
Nominated Senator Victor Prengei is dead. Prengei died in a Nakuru hospital after being involved in a fatal road accident along Nakuru-Sigo Road. Nakuru Police Commander Beatrice Kiraguri confirmed Prengei's death. Lee Kenyanjui is Nakuru Governor.
We are still coming to terms with the loss of Senator Victor. We just got the news about before 9 for myself. I think he came here just after 7. But I think more information will come as we move on. But I think to the family, the wife who is here, the brother, and the greater community in Marioshoni, our condolence and prayers go to the family.
Kenyan champions at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics will receive 1 million shillings for gold medalist. President Uhuru Kenyatta revealed this after receiving athletes who represented the country at the just concluded Tokyo Olympics. Silver medalists will each get 750,000 shillings, while bronze medalists will get 500,000 shillings. The head of state further announced a uniform token of 200,000 shillings for all athletes and officials, including the Paralympics team participating in delayed summer games. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, looking a little bit crazy around the city. That area at Makadara on Jogo Road this morning, as you're trying to get into the city, looks like it's going to take some time. We're also looking at a lot of traffic on Langata Road, headed out into the city. Aerodrome is giving you some good way of exit into the city, but is still packed. That Bunyala Road roundabout area also an issue. Mombasa Road, yes, unfortunately. Outbound, all the way from SGR through to General Motors, very, very slow this morning, and all because of construction. Things have slowed down considerably. Also looking at Jogo Road, then headed out into the, rather thicker road, headed out into the city, piling up now further and further towards Survey, out towards the connection between Kiambu Road and Muthaiga Square. Pangani underpass, then out into the city. Very, very slow this morning. So we're going to keep an eye on things and see how it opens up at least before 7:30. Let's see what it looks like then. Are you stuck somewhere? Is it looking good? Let us know. The bypass is looking good. Southern, Eastern, Red Hill, Northern, not causing too much of a problem this morning. Text us on 40127. Tweet SpiceFMKE.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 5 minutes after 7. A very good morning to you wherever you're tuned in this morning. Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM. And we're also live streaming the show, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. C.T. Muga, with your sack of Proverb.
You cannot steal a head of a goat from the butcher and put it in a sack, for the horns will stick out. The beauty of Proverbs is that you don't focus on the grammar. You just focus on the meaning. Okay? And this is what happens when you want to translate something from some native language into the English language.
Use the long route.
Focus on the meaning.
I think this one, I'm actually focusing on the source. It must have come from the butcher.
These
trying to dissuade people.
It's from the Shona community.
Don't try and steal the goods from my butchery, because I'll be able to see.
By the way, this is a community that is actually known to keep cattle. Traditionally. Whether they do now is a different matter, but traditionally they were known to keep cattle.
Oh, and that's why they think that a goat's horns are as long as a cow's.
If you come from a community where people harvest honey, and they're beekeepers, they will have bee-related proverbs. If you come from a community that neighbors a forest or a jungle, as we like calling it, you will have proverbs that deal with animals. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about the sort of concrete jungles where the animals you're dealing with are beetles and flies.
Or humans.
No, or humans, yes. And probably the occasional bird. That's wildlife.
Okay. So then let's talk about money.
Yes.
Okay? And let's talk about money with somebody who has money. His name is Brian Myers. Brian is the CEO of, pronounce this, Equity Brokerage.
Correct.
But without a Y.
Without a Y, yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Equity with an I at the end.
You guys know us in Kenya as EGM Securities, FX Pesa.
FX Pesa is the main product.
Yep. EGM Securities is the licensed brokerage in Kenya, and FX Pesa is the product.
Okay. So what's FX Pesa?
Well, hello, by the way. Thank you so much for having me. Situation Room. It's great to be here. What a privilege. So I'm Brian Myers, the CEO of Equity Brokerage. FX Pesa, we came to the market in Kenya 3 years ago. I think about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a lot of issues with brokerages in Kenya. They were taking people's money, scams, running away with people's money, unscrupulous players. So it looked like Kenya really needed a licensed brokerage to make finance safe. So we worked with your regulator. It took us a couple of years to do the paperwork to construct a regulated environment like we have elsewhere in the world. I was CEO in the UK as well. And it's been a fantastic journey. Been here for 3 years, building the industry, hiring lots of people, investing in the community. ever since, and trying to make sure that when people want to invest in products like gold, like FX, the euro, dollar, oil, shares in Apple, Tesla, US stocks, European stocks, they can do that now for us at FX Pesa in a completely safe environment.
Okay. This one, you have walked in feet first. So I'm going to ask, how then do we differentiate you from the scammers and from these people who promise heaven and don't give you anything even close to earth?
Yeah. You are jumping straight in. Great. That's why I'm here, really, to mainly discuss this. Even last week, the CMA released a cautionary statement to say that there was a company that was offering 400% return in 6 hours. Right. So
how come I didn't hear of this?
That 500 shilling CT. I mean,
yeah, and you know, and it's the thing with that is that you know, your gut tells you this is obviously a scam. You know, people that have been around the block a bit, people that maybe are financially literate, but there are unfortunately thousands of people across the world falling for this still daily. So when you get regulation, and we're regulated all over the world. So equity, we're regulated in the UK. We've got offices in the States. We've got offices in New Zealand, all across the Middle East. I live in Dubai, Armenia. You know, it's just we're everywhere. And then when you're regulated locally, you have certain rules that are governed, right? So, for example, if you were going to send me your funds, I have to segregate all of your money. It's called client money rules. So I can't use your money at all. I put your money in a segregated bank account. Whatever happens with the brokerage, your money's safe. Now, when there's unregulated brokers or scammers, they're taking your money and immediately they're using your money for operations, to hire staff, to buy whatever they want to buy, right? And invariably, if they have a bad month, they can just close the doors and run out. So that's why regulation is so important to tackle the scammers, because you've always got people governing you and you're working closely with the regulators. So what we're trying to promote to stop the scams is people to improve their financial literacy, to understand things like, you know, who are they trading with, understanding, you know, are they established, do they have enough funds capacity to run the operation. With financial literacy, we're trying to promote people to get their own education, to understand finance more. And once they do that, I think that the way that financial literacy increases, scams are going to go down. Less people are going to believe things like 400% return in 6 hours.
Who regulates all this in Kenya?
Central Markets Authority, CMA.
And they've been here all along when these scammers have actually been in Kenya as well. So what on earth have they been regulating?
I can't speak to that. I mean, I know in the last 3 years, yeah.
I asked it deliberately. Because if they're the regulators and all these things have been happening in this country, see, the question, what bothers me is this teeny little bit of information. Money is given to you, you segregate it as you said, it is kept aside. What is the guarantee that it stays kept aside? Because if the regulators are the same regulators, and we've had all these problems, their regulatory functions have to be questioned.
Why are you asking that, City?
I'm asking that because banks are regulated more than any other institution that I know of.
Yes, and they still collapse.
Not only do they collapse with people's money. I've had 2 banks that have collapsed with my money. It was just probably 2,000 shillings, but it was still my money. Okay? Now, I see this, and I'm told there's a shaky in investment culture, and I'm thinking, but these people have to be registered to be able to do this. Now, if there's a regulator, one, they should have weeded these people out, or the threshold should have been such that they know and they understand. So how do we get to the point where this happens to all these unsuspecting would-be investors? That's really where I'm going with my questions.
So maybe what's the enforcement then? What enforcement measures does the regulator put on you?
I think
do you have like a daily reporting structure?
The reporting is obviously huge. You know, you've got to have a big governance structure. A huge governance structure. You've got to do your reporting. You're audited. You've got internal audit, external audit. I think in answer to your question, that it's because we need to improve the literacy rates. people still go to unregulated brokers. So if Kenyans wanted to find out who the regulated brokers were to trade the products I just mentioned, they can find out very, very simply. Unfortunately, you've still got people trying to sell to them from outside of Kenya, and they're not. Why I'm here today and why I've just been to all of our offices in Kitengela and Thika, and I'm relentless in trying to put this message across, is the more people we speak to get this message to, the safer the environment's going to come. Because if ultimately what I don't want to happen is that people there's more people coming into trading now than there has ever been previously, all across the world. Like, I don't know about you guys, but majority of people I speak to at the minute, they want to trade gold. They've got an opinion on oil. Oil went negative last year. What does that mean? Apple, Tesla. People want to get involved during coronavirus. So because they wanted to get involved during the coronavirus, because unfortunately this virus pushed people into their house and they needed to find an income online, right? The 5th most searched term on Google in Kenya was, how do you make money online? So they're in their house, they're looking for an income or second income or hustle, so they're looking at trading. All these people that are coming through, unfortunately, of course, a lot of them are looking for the quick buck, the get rich quick scheme. And they're on social media and they're hearing that people are making all this money very quickly. So they're not doing their due diligence and their research into who's the regulated broker that I should be doing this with. Yeah. They're just rushing in. And that's why I'm spending so much time trying to speak to markets and clients, and we're doing workshops and podcasts and seminars. We're relentless in the content we're doing to just try and get people to be educated.
So Brian, you mentioned something which in my opinion, I think it's clear that people are being scammed because they don't have an understanding or the adequate literacy to understand all of this.
Yeah.
So so come in, someone such as yourselves. What exactly is happening? People are you the place, the platform upon which now people have their money, whatever small amount, and are able to invest it. You give the advice. So are you giving this advice?
We don't give advice.
How then are you helping in terms of people's investments? What exactly are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah, good question. So we're the provider of the platform for people to trade on their mobile phones. Okay, so obviously, undeniably, there's a huge wave now of people in Kenya that spend 7 hours plus on their mobile phones every day. Most people have got their phones with them all the time, but Kenyans have got it surgically attached to their hand, and they're looking for a platform to trade things like gold and currencies and Apple. We give them the platform, but the main thing that we do as well is we educate. So we're always doing workshops. We're at floor 12 on Delta Tower in Westlands in Nairobi. We're at Tower 1 in the middle of Nakuru. We've got, as I said, in Thika, Kitengela, we're open in Eldoret. And we're educating non-stop to try and make people grow and understand these things for themselves, right? So a couple of years ago, Standard & Poor did a survey of financial literacy across the world. And when they did this survey, they were asking really simple questions like, do you understand when you take out a loan, what the repayments are going to be? What's diversification of risk? And when they went to European countries, 70 to 75% of the time, people were literate. They understood the answers to these questions. When they came to Africa or East Africa, they were speaking to Kenyans. It was 38% of people that understand the answers to these questions. So the society isn't going to learn by trusting to give people their money and then just sit back, right? When you give them the platform and the education, you're growing their literacy forever. Like I know myself when I started in this, the first year, 2 years, I made some mistakes, probably did a couple of errors, probably some shortcuts, wanted to earn too much money immediately, didn't understand things like compound interest, all these things. And then over time, you get so much better and you start to realize what you're doing. And year after year, you're growing your own knowledge. And why is this so important? Well, the statistic we see is that 70% of Kenyans enter their retirement with less than $1 million shillings. Okay, so that's $1 million shillings. Hopefully you're blessed and you've still got your parents, you've got kids, you've got grandkids, you're trying to help all of these people. How do you, it's not enough, right? How do you change that? You're not going to earn your way to financial freedom. Most people think, okay, I'll go to school, I'll get a good job, I'll earn more money than I spend, and I'll get a considerable amount of savings. The reality is that doesn't happen. It never happens. The more your life goes on, the more children, etc. I've got 3 children. I know how expensive it is. The more you spend. How do you combat that? You combat that by learning very early financial literacy and education, and start to invest and start to build your portfolio and understand what you're doing. That's how we're going to tackle this.
So when someone walks into FX Pesa today, in any of the offices that you've said, Delta Towers in Nairobi or the Tower 1 in Nakuru and the other places, what's the first thing that they ask for? And what's the first, in terms of if you look at average, what's the first thing that they ask for, and what kind of information do you immediately give them? Yeah, I mean, your listeners can text join to 40184, and that will actually walk them through as a newbie, if you're going to come to us from scratch. Okay, so we always say, very simply, save, understand, invest, and be patient. It's very noisy out there. There's a lot of people giving education, a lot of people screaming that you can make a lot of money. We try and strip out all the noise to people that are coming to us for the first time. We say, unfortunately, the bit we can't help with is the save part. That's the tough part. How are you going to? What are you going to do in your life that you're going to earn more money than you're spending? But everyone's got to take that upon themselves to go out and find a way to do that. Otherwise, you can't build this. And then it's the understand. So you come to us, and then we can give you a demo platform which has got fantasy money on the platform, so you can start to practice all the stuff that we're teaching you and not lose any money until you're very, very happy to commit your first real trade with your real money. We're going to give you. We're always doing webinars, so we're doing webinars on things like technical analysis. We're doing things like webinars on, you can just get on our website and we'll give you a whole schedule. So you're doing webinars, we're doing seminars in person. In Nairobi, we've got a big workshop that people come to us every single day, and we're consistently, obviously coronavirus dependent. We're revolving the workshops and training. I'm on social media. Follow me at Brian_equity. All day, I'm trying to educate and trying to give my mistakes that I did when I was younger, and try and learn from my mistakes. Podcasts, emails, SMS. We're on Telegram. We're giving technical analysis daily of what we see in the markets, on what's happening with gold, what's happening with euro dollar. It really is about kind of honing in on what's important, but repetition is the key to mastery, right? We just want to make sure that we're consistently sending the same. Yeah, it sounds very technical. If I just listen to it from that point, because I'm just looking back at what we have stock brokerages in Kenya. There's an IPO, it's for whatever company, and you just hear, how much do I need to spend? Minimum X. Put in the money and wait for the results. And you start complaining, I put in money and this company, I've not been getting money. So when someone is walking to you and they are now hearing FX and they're wondering, so am I buying stocks? I'm hearing you talking about commodities, about gold, about oil. It's all very complicated. And that's why I'm asking. So when someone walks into your office for the first time and they say, you know what, I'd like to invest some money, what is the first thing that you tell them? Yeah. So as I said, definitely to come on board, start to learn, start to do reading around it. I would always recommend not just listening to. I'd always recommend understanding. Is someone in a position to be able to talk to you and to teach you something, right? What's their background? I think far too many people are going onto social media nowadays, following a kid that's 17 that's rented a Ferrari for half an hour and stood in front of it, and they're believing that this is the story, right? Yes. And it's a big problem. Why is it? It's a problem because the youth of today they're looking for instant gratification, right? If they want a date, they'll swipe on an app. If they want a taxi, they want it in 10 minutes. If they want a delivery, they want it same next day. No one's waiting for anything. That's not the case with wealth creation. That is not the case with wealth creation. You do have to come on board, and you're going to have to learn and listen. It's not as complex, hopefully, as I'm maybe making it sound, because we walk with you through it. Right? We walk with you through it. So we'll be consistently training you on different bits and pieces. Come on board. As I said, text join to 40184. We can get you set up on the platform, demo, not risking anything. We can talk to you about what product you're interested in trading. You raise a good point, Eric, that when I first came to Kenya almost 3 years ago, the thing that I noticed was that everyone was trading local equities plus bonds, right? Local equities plus bonds. And I think that's because probably your parents are telling you local equities, NSC or whatever. It's a big world out there. And at that time, the NSC wasn't performing. There's very limited amount of stocks that you actually are making money on when you trade in local stocks. And we offer stock futures. We offer Safaricom. You can come and trade that with us.
But at the same time as that, going back into last March, if you were trading US equities, you were getting returns on things like Tesla, where you were genuinely getting 800, 900,000% return in a year on these big US stocks. So what we did is we came to Kenya and we democratized this sort of stuff. We opened the door to Kenyans. We said, great, if you like trading NSE stocks, if you like trading bonds, continue to do so. But when the economy is not performing or the stock market in Kenya is not performing, there's a big world out there. You can trade US stocks, you can trade, UK stocks, and that's one of the things we're doing is we really are offering the possibilities to Kenyans that they did not have before.
And what are the guarantees of safety? Because it's a huge thing for a lot of people that, I'm putting in my hard-earned, savings or funds. How can I be guaranteed that they are safe? You're talking about, and the thing about the NSC, for example, whether it's an illusion in the minds of people, it is something that is here.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, let's try to trade in things that are foreign and are away from your current domiciled existence, right?
Yep.
So what are the guarantees of safety? And some of these things that you talk about, foreign exchange, the gold that you've mentioned a couple of times, US trade, Amazon, Tesla, things like that. What are the guarantees that they're safe?
We breaking down the guarantees. So we've already discussed, obviously, don't send your funds. Whether you come to us, we're the biggest, we're the first, we're the best. I want you to come to us, of course, we'll take care of you. But whether you do or not, go to a regulated broker because of, I said, the client money protections.
Sure.
Don't go to an unregulated broker. Don't send your money elsewhere outside of Kenya. It's just not worth the risk. So that's the first one. To make sure you're with a regulated broker, your money's safe. When you then commit the money to a trade, we teach you how you can always put, it's called a stop loss. So you can always pick how much money you're risking on that trade. Right? Do you want to risk $5, 50 shillings? Whatever whatever it is you want to risk, you can risk on the platform. We can show you how to do that. When you're talking about the products, the safety of the products, obviously things like gold, US stocks, these things are much more widely traded than even Safaricom, believe it or not. Much more widely traded. And when you look at currency, there's $6 trillion of currency traded per day. So the whole world is trading these products, and by more people trading the products, the stability, we call it liquidity, the stability of the product is there. So if anything, I'd argue, again, we're opening up the doors to Kenyans, and I think when you cut forward in 3-4 years, people are going to be allocating much more of what they do for investment away from the NSC and just bonds. They'll still have it, of course, because it should be in their portfolio, but they'll be looking at other things.
Are you taking anybody's money, any amount of anybody's money? Question why I'm asking that is where people say, okay, this is interesting. Maybe it's something I want to do, but I only have so much.
Yeah.
What's the minimum?
What's the minimum?
$5. So 500 shillings. Sorry. So 500 shillings is just the minimum because of the transaction of putting it through M-Pesa or whatever. We always say, but having said that, I wouldn't recommend someone just put 500 shillings onto the account.
$50?
$5.
$5.
Yeah.
$5. Okay.
Yeah.
You're happy?
No, 500 shillings.
Yeah.
Yes. Before I ask the all-important question I'm going to ask, indulge us a little bit and tell us how it is with all this regulation. How do stock markets crash?
How do they crash?
I mean, what brings it about? Because, again, I haven't left that take on regulation.
Yeah.
They're regulated. There are all these people watching. There are all these people ensuring that these things happen. What triggers this thing off to the point where we are told they have crashed?
So when you look at it, let's look at a US stock market. Let's look at it over a period of time, because this is one of the things that we teach. Thinking about for the long term, right? So every single year, on average, you'll see a 10% correction, a downturn of 10%. Every 3 to 5 years, you'll see what's known as a bear market, which is a 20% decrease. A couple of times in the last 100 years or so, we've seen 50% plus drop in the stock market, which you would call a crash. Now, the things that would normally impact that would be something like coronavirus. Just a world event that would come in that would mean that really everyone's digesting the fact of what does this actually mean? Does this mean if the whole world's shut, this means that the earnings of all the companies that are in the stock market are going to collapse. Therefore, I would rather take my money out of the investments and just sit on cash for now because I don't know what's going on in the world. As everyone's looking to sell, the price of all of the stock markets crash or go down. Now, what we teach, what I teach, obviously, it's doing this for 15 years and being able to see all this stuff, is that even when these things happen, very quickly they reverse. Very quickly they reverse. You know, like last March when the markets came off, if you'd invested at that time, you would have done very, very, very well over the last 12 months. And they say that, you know, the stock market's a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. People that are scared and pull their money out, the people that sit there and are able to sit there, they make the money from the people that are scared. That's So this is why it's just the ebb and flow of the markets. You know, it's just it's like these things happen, of course, because people are buying and selling like any market.
It's just how things are. So if I get onto FX Pesa, is it an app? Is it a website?
Yeah, it's an app. It's a web. You can access for a web trader as well, so you can just put it into your browser, or it's an app.
So I select to put in money. I can do that through mobile money.
Yep, you can do it for M-Pesa. Yep.
Okay, so through M-Pesa I put in money and I say I've invested. Can I take out my money at any time?
Of course you can. Yep, withdrawals, of course, any time.
And then how do I get paid?
How do you get paid?
Yes, how do I receive the money?
Profits that you make on top, whatever.
Yeah, of course, you can withdraw any amount. So you credit your account, you make money from your trades, and then whatever amount you then want to withdraw back into M-Pesa, you can.
So straight M-Pesa in, M-Pesa out.
Yeah, you can, there's other ways as well. We have you can do it through banks, and depending on the region, we have other things like Nutella, Skrill, all these payment providers.
No restrictions, or do you have any products that say, okay, this one is restricted 6 months locked in, or 1 year locked in?
No
anytime in, anytime out.
And that's another thing as well. I was having this conversation yesterday. You know, I know Kenyans are love looking at property. They love investing in land, right? And we were having the conversation between the difference between investing in things like shares or land. And you know, with land, you've got a lot of headaches, right? You've got you've got a lot of headaches whether you're going to build on it, whether you've got tenants on it. When you come to sell it, what can you sell it for? When you're investing in shares, you can invest in shares, collect dividends if you're investing long term. Or if you're investing in our products like share CFDs, you can sell at any time and pull your money back at any time. Whatever the price is that you've got on the screen, you can action the sell at that price.
Do I have to come physically to where you are to get this education, or apart from the webinars and stuff that you have, I don't have to come physically. I can get that information.
Certainly not. Since now we're onboarding 15 times more clients than we were before coronavirus. We're onboarding thousands and thousands of clients. We've got a huge client base. And the mass majority of those we're educating online. Workshops are very, very busy and in demand, of course, but particularly during coronavirus, we're educating online.
All right. So once again, someone who'd like to join, text the word join to 40184. So 40184, text the word join, and then you'll receive some information prompting.
We'll give you the steps, exactly. We'll give you the steps of what to do next. Come and join us.
Okay. And if I'd like to download the app?
Download the app. You can find FX Pesa app in the App Store. Again, but we'll walk you through everything. Everything's very, very simple. We can onboard you in 7 minutes now, which we'll shave some of that time off, but we can get you up and running and live in 7 minutes.
Brian, there's something that I want you to just explain to me so that I understand. So what you've told us in a nutshell is that if I give you 500 shillings now, I can't get 50,000 next week.
And anyone that's telling you that, the only people that get rich off of get rich quick schemes are the people selling it, right? And that's what we want to. That's one message we want to get that across Kenya. Just please stop believing these guys that are telling you that you're going to get 400% return in 6 hours. It's just not true. They're scamming you. They're taking your money. And your hard-earned money as well. You know, you've gone to work and you've got up, you've been busting the gut, you've spent less than you've been earning, and then you're going to give someone that hard-earned money that's promising you these returns. It's just not on, and we've got to stop it from happening. As I said, now there's millions and millions more people coming into trading for the first time, and it is millions and millions more across the world. The whole world is trading now and thinking about the financial futures. Is absolutely fantastic, but with that, there becomes more unscrupulous players, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Because people know that the people are looking for these shortcuts. So, CT, no, we're not going to take your money and tell you you're going to get this multiple return. What we're going to do is keep your money safe, and we're going to teach you whatever you're interested in. We're going to give you lots of education to make sure that you can grow it over time.
If you're interested in this, let's get into that education, CT. Start with 500, Bob.
So should we sell that plot?
Yeah, that plot of ours, but the problem now is getting to a buyer for this plot.
That's the problem.
We'll advertise the plot
And see what happens.
and then take that money and give it to Brian.
Yes.
And then see in 5 years' time how rich we'll be. We'll be kicking Brian out of his own company.
Great.
Buying
Yeah,
him out.
please do.
Brian Myers is the CEO of Equity Brokerage, known in Kenya's EDM Securities, regulated by the Capital Markets Authority. They're running FX Pesa. He's been here with us telling us about FX Pesa and how they are shaking up the forex trading. Well, you can join by sending a text 40184. Text the word join to 40184 and then they'll be able to onboard you. Or you can also download their app on Play Store. And this is FX Pesa app. Thank you very much, Brian, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Asante sana. See you again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Anytime.
All right. It's 26 minutes to 8 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation takes its break. Let's see what's happening on the roads and also the weather forecast for the country and the rest of the world. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life 24/7 around the world non-stop. This is Spice FM.
This is something people need to understand. Your money, my money, equals our money. We cannot have your money is our money and my money is my money.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
City, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, say, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
A bit of advice. Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with
It's still cloudy in Nairobi
FM.
at 14, highs of 21 today. 13 and light rain in Nyeri, highs of 19 and lows of 13. It's sunny in Nakuru to go to highs of 23 and lows of 12 today. 13 and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 22 and lows of 11. 18 will be the low in Kisumu. It's mostly sunny this morning. Partly sunny conditions in Kakamega at 16, highs of 27 and lows of 14. Rain showers at 24 in Mombasa with highs of 28. They'll come down to lows of 22. 24 will be the low in a rainy Malindi, highs of 28. 26 will be the high in Kampala. It's mostly sunny at 21, coming down to lows of 17. It's raining in Dar es Salaam, 22, highs of 29 and lows of 21. 8 degrees is what it is in Johannesburg. Clear, highs of 20. Mostly clear in Lagos at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 25. And we'll look at lows of 23 in a mostly cloudy Kinshasa. It'll go to highs of 31.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Yes, we're still seeing some traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, headed out into the city. It looks like it's going to be the thing. At the 87, going towards Westlands, there was an accident this morning on your way to town, almost at the junction. So now that is a problem because it has slowed things down considerably. The Red Hill Link Road is an option for you to use this morning. Use it. You won't be stuck in this traffic that is around Westlands. Langata Road also slows down considerably. We're also seeing that Thika Road continues to be a thing, trying to get into the city. So let's keep an eye on things. We're now in the middle of traffic hour and things are likely to go a little bit crazier from here on out. So let's watch out for each other, shall we? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch with us. Text us on 40127. Want to keep things moving this morning. Find a good route or find one that has too much traffic and you're trying to get sorted out. Let us know and we'll spread the word.
Spice and everything nice. All right.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. In the room with you this morning is CT Muga, Nduoko, and Eric Latif. So there's, the whole issue of community involvement in projects and the issue of donors as well is a big one. There's a story on page 16 of the Standard today, which is kind of interesting. A donor and locals at Kasambara, Nakuru County are fighting over the control of a 150 million shillings hospital. The hospital, which was started 19 years ago, was closed in February last year following leadership wrangles between the community and the donors. Donors from Switzerland visited the area in the year 2000 and decided to set up the facility. The donors, after a series of meetings with locals, identified a 5-acre land to construct the hospital. Ruth Schaefer was appointed the manager on behalf of the donors. Francis Washira, a former director of Kasambara Farm, said 200 locals attended the meeting and agreed to donate the land where Rain Valley Hospital sits. He says a public school donated an acre, the Catholic Church donated another acre, while a resident, Mwangi Wakaba, gave 2 acres of land. Late in 2002, the hospital was opened and residents could easily access medical services. Before the construction, locals claimed the nearest facility was in Nakuru town, which is 25 kilometers away. Washira says the donors agreed with the locals that the hospital will belong to the community, and when the Standard visited the facility, there was a notice indicating it had been closed indefinitely. It's not clear who had written this notice in Kikuyu, English and Kiswahili, but the notice did not stop some residents from forcing their way into the hospital compound. The residents claim that they entered the hospital after they discovered that the person who had been appointed as the director, Ms. Schaefer, was taking away equipment. A local says they'll officially take over the leadership of the hospital and hand it over to the county government. We cannot allow them to take what belongs to the community. Wambui Karanja, a healthcare provider and a board member at the facility, said once Ms. Schaefer took over the hospital management, she sacked the board members and ran the hospital single-handedly. This is just an issue of community, donor, and ownership. If community has donated the land, school has donated an acre, church has donated an acre, one individual has donated 2 acres. And then the donors have come up and put in the money and the equipment and brought in somebody to manage the hospital. Now we get to a point where a couple of years down the road, there's who actually owns this facility.
That one is not really very complicated.
No.
I sense there was an understanding, and chances are all that was documented, and then people changed their minds.
Halfway through the transaction.
Well, somewhere along the line, people figured out that perhaps they would like to see a difference, or they'd like to run it differently. The arrangement that had been made before should be different. Why do I say this? I say this because think of the discussions that take place to the point where people donate land. Just think about that process. Then think about the process where somebody comes in with whatever you call the equipment and what have you. All this happens because there's an understanding. Now, what we're reading is the understanding has broken down.
Yep.
Okay. Not very long ago, there's a St. Mary's Mission Hospital in Langata. There is another one in Nakuru, around the Elmentaita area.
Not far from Kasambara, by the way.
Precisely. Okay. This man reads my mind. 10-year battle. It had to go to the Court of Appeal. Meaning went to court, appeal. It went to the Court of Appeal for it to be resolved. Again, There was a U.S. priest, there were some nuns, there were issues. The court made a decision, and that matter for now has rested. Now, it can't be that the hospital and the length of time it takes to build a hospital, if there were angles, that hospital would never have been built.
Nope.
So it was built, it was functioning. Then what happened? It doesn't differ, in my mind, from the stories you hear of land buying companies where the leadership is are always dying, not as a mysterious disease, they are killed.
They're killed.
It means land buying, it means they buy land. But you also get the story, there are people who contribute so that they can be given land.
Yep. Sure.
Using the numbers, economies of scale as they call it.
Yep.
And then somewhere on the line, they don't get what they were supposed to get. And they say, okay, fine, we get it, but give us our money then. Then there's a problem with giving back the money. They say, look, please, just give us our money.
It's leadership wrangles, and you wonder, so
yes.
At what point, how do you better structure some of these things?
Yes.
Because if something is a community project, and then a couple of years down the road, there's no community. Because I'm actually reading further in this story, the lawyer for Ms. Sheffer is called Steve Biko. He says the hospital is a donor-funded project under the management of the Rhine Valley Hospital Association of Switzerland. He's refuting the claim that the community owns the hospital, saying the locals never contributed a penny towards its construction. The lawyer says the donors have been contributing 12 million shillings every year to run this facility. The property was registered in December 2005 under the name of the hospital. The fact that parents have pupils in schools and attend a church does not imply that they own it.
That argument is slightly faulty, and I'm going to explain why it is faulty. In that article, is there anywhere they tell us what the arrangement was when they started? Because these are after the fact statements that you're hearing. I'm saying this because I've worked in donor-funded
projects
for a long time. And believe me, there is clarity. You know. If for some reason you manage to source funds and you put up, say, a comprehensive care center, you work in it, but it belongs to that community.
It's community owned.
It's built for their benefit.
Okay.
So when the funding ends, you don't take the center and move away with it. You leave it. You leave it exactly where you built it. It's part of the donor funding. It's part of the help.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. So that, remember, my eye and the touch and feel and see.
Got it.
Yes. So if you simply helped and there's nothing standing, you'll wonder, were they really here? But that is evidence that these people were here and this is what they did. Now, a lot of funding specifies that, for instance, I know funding that had to do with PEPFAR, putting up buildings. No, they didn't. No. They pay for drugs, they pay for manpower, they help with everything else. So if you want to put up a building, you have to look for somebody else who is in a position to fund it. Now, what am I saying? These things are possible because there is an understanding. You don't do it because I know.
Is that understanding documented?
It's documented. Oh, my friend.
That both parties know what we are entering into and what we are supposed to receive as a result of this argument.
Oh, yes.
Or this agreement, rather.
The only difference would be if you bought your own piece of land, for instance.
Right.
Okay? And the building was put in your own piece of land. Then it would be a different discussion. But this one, why am I bringing this in? I worked in a setup where we put up structures. We helped put up structures in government-owned health facilities. Okay? And we had to come to an understanding at the time with the council.
Yep.
How we work. Because it's their premise. This is how we're going to work.
So to what degree is there documentation? And it's very important that we talk about the documentation because if at that point there's an understanding, it's in public land, we are putting up the facility, we shall support you for a while and then we shall leave. So who owns it? Is it because it shall be registered? For example, in this one, it's registered under the name of this particular hospital.
My friend.
It's not registered under the name of community or donor.
Yeah,
it's registered under this.
Yes, but whose land is it? You see, that's where the understanding comes in.
Now the land has been transferred, but the community has transferred the land title did now read hospital.
So which means that was their contribution.
Yes.
That's why I said there's something fallacious about it. So saying the community did not contribute doesn't come in. Their equity was land, because in the absence of that land, the hospital wouldn't have been built.
All right. So
Now-
who owns it?
Now, the details of that now is in the understanding.
You see, the reason I'm bringing that up is because we've also seen the same with schools. All right, a community puts up a school. Let's say a religious community puts up a school somewhere, and they start children come into the school. A couple of years down the road, you hear the council, the local council, claiming ownership. We've had one in Nairobi.
Yes, we
Was
have.
it the Oshol Primary School?
Yes.
Well, there was a whole issue of, so this one was put up by the Oshol community. Is it a Nairobi City Council school?
Or a community
Is
school?
it a community school?
Actually, many of these communities, especially our brothers and sisters of Asian origin, many of them put up schools of that nature. Now, the one institution that seemed to have understood it, if I may mention by name, is the Aga Khan institution, because they have what they call the Aga Khan, it's a government-assisted school, meaning they put up the building, but it's a partnership with the government, and the government provides teachers.
So you put up the building, but then you invite the government to
Yes.
come and run the
Yes.
processes of education.
Yes, and why I'm giving them as an example, then they also have a fully private school that is not owned by the government. It's
Yes.
owned by the education services.
Yes.
Okay? Now, again, it's an understanding. I would need to understand what the community understood with this donation and the details of what their participation would be in that process.
Yes.
Because this is where it comes in. Because
Especially when it comes to management.
Yes.
Do we have a seat on the board?
Yes.
Okay. Like the case with the Oshol schools was, so who has a say on the management of the school? Yes. Teachers are coming from the government for this particular school. We are admitting everybody. But who's in the board?
Actually, again, it's in the details.
Yes.
Because if it was a health facility, like the ones I know of, usually the board comprises of the community, the board of that particular health. And you, as somebody who is part and parcel of that community, that health community, you will also have a representation. Okay? Now, the clarity that you're seeking is ownership. If you change the title now to that organization, that's what I need to understand.
Yeah.
Did the community then get a say or shares? What was their participation?
Into this new entity
yes,
that owns the land.
precisely, because their equity is clear. They gave the land. Those are details that one needs to know.
For sure. There would need to be an understanding on the inner workings of this particular agreement, and then know who was supposed to give what, or who did or did not give what. Because things often happen in the current that at one state would negate what the original agreement, agreed upon or instituted. And it's very possible that current or present happenings could bring all of that to naught.
There's
Very
something called-
possible.
There's something called human nature. I agree entirely it is possible. Where human nature comes in, the project starts, everybody has an understanding, and then somewhere along the line, the human being decides differently.
Yeah, and then what are you going to do?
And then now the stories change, and then suddenly you didn't contribute, you didn't own, we don't know, we don't
You were not
understand.
present at that
and
time.
all that's what I find befuddling, because the hospital is up and running. So what suddenly changed? On the other hand, one needs to ask this donor, where on earth was this donor getting his money from, or her money from, or their money from? Because what they did to get the money and what they represented, this community didn't go to wherever they were getting their money to understand how. Now, they may have been responsible for the things that they said or told, which the community here didn't fully know or understand.
Yeah.
So you then have the reality of what presented itself and which they were never told come into play. Issues of ownership are often in the details of the understanding that people arrived at. And people don't go around donating land unless they understand what their role is going to be. They don't.
The unfortunate bit about this kind of events is that the people who should be benefiting from these services are not.
Are not.
No, they're not.
When a hospital is shut down and it was serving a community, then now it means that the people have to go back to their 25 kilometers to Nakuru County.
Sure. Think about it across the board. People then who are depending for long-term processes of health and,
Yep.
a weekly dialysis treatment, a weekly something or another, and then people who would come in droves for your normal procedures on a daily basis. At the end of the day, when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers.
It's the grass that suffers.
But consider also, you see, it is because of the needs that you mentioned that this hostel was a viable project.
In the first place.
Yes. Due diligence had been done. It was realized, this is something needful.
We need something here.
Yes.
The nearest health facility is 25 kilometers away in Nakuru town, and so let's set up one here for this community. And the community is willing, and they say, all right, so
this is our contribution.
This is our contribution from the school, from the church. This one gentleman says, I give you 2 acres, let's put up the facility. Facility is up and running, and then so many years down the road, shut down and equipment being carted away. Changes. What role should the government be playing at this particular point, especially the Nakuru County government, in addressing this issue? What is the scaffold? Can we sit down? Can we go through mediation? Can we see how to come back and still ensure that we're benefiting the community? Even if we're saying, Sawa, you take away your equipment, the commitment by county government, we shall take over the running of this particular facility, we shall bring in the equipment. Because the need is still there.
The need never goes away.
And it's the people. So in the next hour, we shall be talking to Kisii Governor James Ongwae about devolution and how devolution has performed in the last, how many years are these now? 8?
9. Yeah.
Yep. 8 years of devolution. So what is it that we have seen? Can we say that we have seen devolution changing the country? Has devolution worked for the betterment of the nation? Is it achieving what it was supposed to achieve? How would you score it today?
If you ask me how I would score it, on a scale of
1 to 10, 10 being very good, 1 being bad.
I would have to add more variables, because if it's aspirational, the aspiration was achieved in that it was actually set up and it's up and running.
Yes.
That has had hiccups on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 meaning the hiccups have been overcome significantly, we had 2, okay, in my opinion. If I were then to add a different variable and say, is this something that would benefit the people, where 10 would mean people have benefited enormously, I would even divide that and say benefited as in they feel they can run their own affairs, benefited in that what was supposed to be done has been done, 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a large percentage of those who feel that the power that devolution would have actually delivered to the country has been usurped by, those who wanted to see power remaining central. And that's why you see things like funds being withheld and or being dispensed late and things like this. So, I mean, I think it goes both ways, where it was introduced as something that was vital in terms of taking power to the ground. There are those who would have fought it tooth and nail to make sure that it didn't happen.
And the ground didn't help, did it?
Not really.
I think there's a lot that has transformed.
Oh, I think
there's a lot of positive in devolution in those years. Number one is that the citizens now look at and they know we have a governor and this is what we expect from our governor. And it's very clear. People have expectations and direct expectations of development at their local level from governor. Many as well understand the role that the county MCA plays in their local issues and their local development. Now, whether we have completely embraced the fact that the MCA plays a vital role in the running of affairs in a county, or whether we still look at governor and MP and we see there are too many people now we can be demanding services from. There's a governor, there's a senator, there's an MP, there's an MCA, there's a woman rep, there's a president. We have too many people to demand, services from, which could also be a good thing. Because every time you turn around and you're feeling that, you're not getting what you ought to be getting, you have somebody you can point a finger at and say, my friend, this road, we need a road here.
I am in full agreement with you, Eric. Yes.
So Governor James Ongwae will be here. We'll talk to him about that. They'll be hosting their annual Devolution Conference in Makueni County next week. They say that this is the final annual Devolution Conference. After that, I think they'll be organizing it maybe once or twice in a term. Maybe it's become a bit too difficult for them to be running around the country organizing this. But also, it's important to have the devolution conferences because that's where you take stock of what should we be doing? Where are we? in terms of devolution. Is devolution working? Is devolution not working? But I think they don't ask the hard questions as well.
Maybe they do, because it's working for those who work in the system. But the question again I would ask, is it working for the people it's supposed to serve? Yes.
Can the people answer that question?
They're the ones who are best placed to actually answer it, not us. Because I'm sure we'll hear of people who have benefited immensely from it. And I'm sure there are people who are not even sure it exists.
Yeah. It's all about the numbers that matter. Numbers that matter to you on a daily basis. We're talking about FX Pesa, the numbers that matter when you think about investing, putting your money and watching your money grow and the impact that that money has on you, your present and your future. When you think about such things, the numbers that matter, think about NCBA Bank as well, because that's what they also focus on. The numbers that matter to you. What does it matter? Come speak to them. They ask you, so how much do you need? Why do you need it? What does it matter to you? Let's walk the journey with you. If it's about investing, if it's about running or expanding your business, if it's about just needing operating capital for your business, talk to the NCBA Bank. They say go for it, because the numbers that matter to you also matter to them. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Keep it right here. More and more conversations coming up. Yes, the conversation on devolution is coming up next. And then later, we'll talk about the conversation of security in Laikipia, especially Laikipia North constituency, where the MP will be joining us at 9 o'clock. We see that there are people who were even killed yesterday. It's in the news. What's happening in this country, especially when it comes close to elections? Good morning. Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on SpiceFM and online. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The One Kenya Alliance leaders and members are in Naivasha, Nakuru County for a two-day meeting starting today. Makueni Senator Muthui Kilonzo Jr. says they'll discuss the way forward ahead of the next year's general election.
The documents that have been prepared by the technical team, which include the manifesto of One Kenya Alliance, the colors of One Kenya Alliance, the logo of One Kenya Alliance, and other technical matters, including what is the matrix we are looking at in terms of deciding the way forward, in terms of the political parties, presidential elections, etc., etc. I will also be receiving a brief from our principals on the meeting they had in Mombasa.
The Law Society of Kenya has indicated that it is ready to go to court today over the case of the two Embu brothers who were allegedly killed by the police. This is a sign that the case may officially start today. These as Kenyans continue to ask questions following the confusion of the police department, who had earlier indicated that they had transferred the said officers before another statement said they had been suspended. Isaiah Nakuru is Eastern Regional Commissioner.
Earlier, we had to do an overhaul of that the entire police officers in that station. Some were transferred, okay, and if the investigation points that we need to go for those, even those who have been transferred, we'll still investigate so that we get to the bottom of this problem.
North Rift Economic Bloc Chief Executive Officer Joseph Makilap has called on Governor Kiptis to declare COVID-19 as a county epidemic and impose new conditions to prevent further transmission. Makilap also criticized the Baringo County administration for failing to put in place effective strategies to prevent the spread of the virus, including urging residents to adhere to the Ministry of Health's guideline.
Musingoche ile sheria ya Kakwe peke yake. You also impose your own protocols within Baringo ndio mchiokoe mapema. Sasa Mombasa walijitangazia protocols yao. Sasa imefika wakati ya Governor Kiptis pamoja na deputy yake waketi chini na kutangaza rasmi kama corona ni changa hatari kwa Baringo na watangaze protocols yao.
From 4 candidates who start their national examination this year will today know their tertiary institutions they will join and the courses they will take. Education CS Professor George Magoa will release the results of the process, which was done through the Kenya University Colleges Central Placement Service. Having implemented a policy of ensuring that all primary school students enroll in high school, the government now aims to ensure that all KCSE candidates proceed with their education, with all 143,000 who scored C+ and above being assured of university spaces. Now, US President Joe Biden has said that the role of U.S. troops in Afghanistan was to protect the United States and prevent attacks such as the 9/11 attacks and not to build Afghanistan.
We went to Afghanistan almost 20 years ago with clear goals. Get those who attacked us on September 11th, 2001, and make sure al-Qaeda could not use Afghanistan as a base from which to attack us again. We did that. We severely degraded al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We never gave up the hunt for Osama bin Laden, and we got him.
This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
There's an absolute mess on Langata Road this morning, and also we're seeing quite some on Huru Highway, both directions, from the Nyeri Stadium roundabouts into the city centre, just past Haile Selassie Avenue. So we're looking at traffic then along Huru Highway all the way to Westlands, in and outbound, and also looking at quite some of it going all the way into Westlands. So that particular area, remember there's that diversion right after Kenyatta Avenue towards the University Way roundabout. So that's still there. Coming off of Kamkunji roundabout and then from Landis Road into the city as well. It's all red and seems that it's going to be hot and heavy for some time. Coming off of Thika Road, now traffic is backed up all the way to Survey this morning. It doesn't look good. It looked a lot better earlier. And so we're seeing some traffic on Limuru Road as well, just past the Aga Khan Hospital. So it's that Tuesday, and we're right in the middle of traffic hour right now. It looks like it's going to take some time to get out of this one. Let's keep an eye on things. Help us out as well on SpiceFM KE, Twitter, and text as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
6 minutes
the
after 8.
only way
Very
to
good
start
morning
your
to you,
day.
and how are you doing? Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. We're on to the third hour of the conversation. We started at 6 a.m. We're here until 10 in the morning. We're live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. We are also live on SpiceFM, and for the next 1 hour, we are live on KTN Home. We begin the hour with the proverb with City Muga.
You cannot steal a head of a goat from the butcher and put it in a sack, for the horns will stick out.
I'm telling you, this proverb was written by a butcher.
Meet the butcher.
Yes. Cannot steal a goat because the horns will be...
Head.
The
Not
head.
just the goat. Head.
The head of a goat and put it in a sack because the horns will stick out.
You know, the horns are a bit of an impediment. Remember the cases we were talking of some times back of individuals who masquerade as policemen.
Yeah.
And some have goats and sheep.
Yeah.
And they've covered it in some way. The horns tend to mess up that whole game. Don't you think so?
Mm.
Because you start wondering, afande hii mbuzi, you have the
mbwa.
iko na pembe. Yes, so. But now, as with Proverbs, what does it mean?
Okay. Let's ask our guest what he understands of this proverb. His Excellency James Ongwae, the governor of Kisii County, joins us in the studio. Karibu sana to the Situation Room.
Asante sana, asante my sister and my two brothers, Eric, Munya, and Nundu. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me here this morning.
We call that the hot seat, Governor. We like to warm it up so that our guest can enjoy the Situation Room. So we'll be warming it up as we go. Let's just start. That proverb. Do you relate to that proverb?
Can you repeat it again, that proverb? Because
Right. You cannot steal the head of a goat from the butcher and put it in a sack, for the horns will stick out. It's not saying you cannot steal the head. You can, just don't put it in a sack, because the horns will stick out.
Well, it depends on the type of sack you're actually putting it in. You would be assuming that you...
Right. Good opening, isn't it? Yes. Okay, carry on.
Yeah, it depends on the sack you're putting it in. If you put it in a sack that whose context, the way it was manufactured was poorly manufactured, then it will probably stick out. Yeah, but it has a broader meaning. And you know, Proverbs, the only problem with Proverbs is that you can ascribe various meanings to them.
Yes.
This particular one, I would rather stand out. I would rather not.
This one you will not.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's put the head of this goat in the gunia and see. The goat is devolution. You are a 2-term governor. You have served in Kisii County. First time the people of Kisii gave you this mandate, and then they felt that you've done a good job. They renewed your mandate. That time is coming to an end. But not just for Kisii County. Looking at devolution and how devolution has worked since the first governors came into office in 2013 up to now, as you're going into the devolution conference, we want to look at the scorecard of how devolution has performed. Many people would say it has had its ups, it has had its downs, it has had its challenges, it has had its wins. On a score of 1 to 10, from your personal perspective as Governor James Ongwae, how would you rate devolution in Kenya?
Thank you very much, Eric. First, even before I start rating devolution, I would have to look at the country called Kenya before devolution, because that then is what gives you the standing from where you're starting from. If you saw Kenya before devolution, and I'd worked in government for about 30 years before devolution, I used to work in the Office of the President and even was a PS in that office. You were seeing counties. They were not we were not calling them counties at that time.
Started with provinces.
They were provinces and districts, and you were seeing where the resources were actually not trickling down to them. But since then, since we came in, I think you've seen tremendous progress. Even the stopping of the people from coming to Nairobi, people are now looking for jobs at the local level. So on a score of 1 to 10, I would probably give the success on devolution, I would probably give it about 8. Yeah.
And what's the 2? Where do those 2 points go?
Well, it's because even in exams, even the best of those that are doing exams, you never get them getting 100%. I think you will find that the bulk of the people, even those exams you did yourself, my brother Eric, you find the bulk of us were actually oscillating around 50% or thereabouts. So those who got 80% are the ones who went to Alliance, they are the ones who went to Harvard. They are the ones who went to these high-level places. So 80% is a very good score.
So, Mheshimiwa, are you saying that the exams are set with the sole goal of ensuring that nobody gets 100%?
That is that question one would have to really think about it, because from time immemorial, we've never heard of anybody getting 100%.
Is it something to aspire to, though, Governor?
That is the aspiration for everybody. I mean, if you are going for an exam, you want to get 100%. That's the aspiration. And it should be the aspiration for this country that the subnational governments that we created, subnational idea that we created in order to increase service delivery and increase development at the local level, that ideally its implementation should be 100%. Yeah.
What are some of the things you think, or some of the challenges that have stood and perhaps continue to stand in the way of, complete devolution in this country? I mean, and even before you answer, I mean, I see so many things. I see counties and I see potential that has come to the surface that without devolution, in my opinion, would have been 100% impossible. that there are people in counties who've gone to school. There are people in other parts of the country who've now been able to access certain things that without this process would never have been able to see. What are some of the things that stop it from them getting to that place where you say it must continue?
I think in the first 6 months to 1 year, we were dealing with the whole broad issue of institutionalization. Because like me now, I'm first and second term governor, which means that I started off devolution. When I went in, there wasn't even an office. There were no institutional structures. There were no governance structures on the ground. We were the first term governor, so we didn't know what managing a subnational government meant. We had our own government that we were running, but there was no book that we were reading from. And there was no handover from anybody. So you could argue that the first 1 year was a year of institutionalization. I think all that we passed. And in the first 1 year, the most crazy thing is that there was absolutely no problem in resourcing county governments. But subsequently, after that, the resourcing for county governments became a problem. And I'll tell you, national government the national ministries receive their funds on a quarterly basis, which means that if you are planning for development, if you probably have a contractor out there who is working, you can actually be able to organize and pay that contractor. You can plan very well to do that. But county governments receive their money on a monthly basis, which means that the entire amount of your budget is divided in such a manner that you given your quantum on a monthly basis. The only problem that happens is that the money comes late. So by the end of the financial year, you actually find that they are giving you the final 2 months on the 30th of June. They are giving you the final 2 months. So if they are giving you like this particular year, the final 3 months had not come in. So the final 3 months came the last 10 days or thereabouts. And that's why you saw us as I happen to be the vice chair of the Council of Governors. That's why you saw us fighting for extension of time in order for counties to actually absorb those resources. But even with that extension of time, it's very difficult because government money is not like your money in the pocket. There are procedures in which that you have to follow in order to pay for services because of transparency and accountability. I mean, your own money, you probably can just go there and just remove. But government money, you must account for it.
Yeah.
So the second problem that I'm seeing is the problem of resources, the problem of release of the resources. The third problem that I have also, I can talk about is that we've now into 10 years of devolution, but there are still certain functions that are still with national government that ideally should have gone to national government, which are still performed by national government. The fourth issue is that if you're looking at all the county governments, we're getting about 350 billion shillings per annum. And then you have a budget which is over 2 trillion shillings. So you need to ask yourselves, and you people are journalists, you need to ask yourselves where actually the 1.7 or 1.8 trillion, where that money goes. If that money is in the center, what is it doing in the center? And yet this country, the entire country is actually devolved. Unless that is serving Nairobi and its environs, we do know that you can understand when they rationalize and indicate that some of that money is going into infrastructural programs that are national in nature and that transit counties like roads. But that quantum needs to be understood. What is it that is transiting counties? What is it that is actually being kept in ministries where probably the people in the ministries have never accepted the reality that we are in devolution?
Do you have an idea? Because I'm curious. Do you have an idea? Just asking now and trying to maybe investigate a little bit. Where does this actually go? if we're saying that? Because I'm hearing you say then that there's a need for more funds to go to the counties to be able to get this work of running the country done. And then it appears as though there's some extra money floating about, and we don't really know where it goes. Do you have any idea?
Your guess is as good as mine, but I will tell you that if you talk to people in those ministries, they will rationalize. They will tell you how they utilize those resources, but they can't utilize them in a vacuum. But they must utilize them in the counties. So that then becomes a job for all of us to find out that these things that they are doing from the center that ideally should be done by the counties, because that's what the people of Kenya said in 2010. In devolving government and in creating the subnational governments. We should accept that reality, those of us who are in the center.
You know, Bona Governor, I agree with you. And in fact, even before you came into the studio, we're talking about what we think about devolution. And I agree with you that devolution has transformed the country in many aspects, in terms of citizens' expectation, public participation, awareness of the citizen. But I get a sense throughout these years that those in the devolved units feel and treat themselves as the smaller brothers of those in the national unit. You came in 2013 at the same time as a new president was coming in. So you are a new governor in Kisii. There was a new president at the national level. You were 47 of you. There was one president at the national level. There's one national government. There's 47. There's a council of governors. But in everything that we hear is as if the national government operates as a big brother and you have accepted your role as small brother. So when your money is not released on time, all you do is whine. When the budget is only allocated at 360 billion shillings, all you do is whine and say, we should be asking where the other 2.7 trillion shillings is going to. But the division of revenue is a conversation that happens in a forum where the Council of Governors sits. It's chaired by the Deputy President, and this is at the IBEC. So I ask myself, is it that there's a big brother, small brother mentality? Or what is the problem? Why are we where we are now?
Eric, I would tell you is probably also true that we have a big young brother mentality. But remember that the Constitution created an intermediate organization that was supposed to take care of devolution matters and also take care of ensuring that the counties are not shortchanged. We created a Senate.
Mm-hmm.
The Senate's role was mainly basically to entirely midwife devolution for this country and take charge of those issues that you're talking about. I'll give you an example. Last financial year, not this one which has ended, but the other financial year, we decided that the resourcing and so on and the amounts were actually not enough to run the counties. And if you recall, there was a push and pull, which meant that the counties actually ended up getting their money sometime in November. We do know that time is a thief because once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
And the financial year would not be rolled back just because you got your money late. So counties ended up getting their money around November. So what are we talking about here? We saying that you can fight this big brother, but if you have a treasury, that is a treasury that is supposed to serve two levels of government, but is a treasury that believes that it is there and exists, and its raison d'etre is just to take care of one level of government first and foremost, then it's the Kenyans now who are supposed to help us. Because let me give you an example. Ministries get their money yours faithfully on a quarterly basis. That is national government now. But counties don't. We are supposed to be serviced by the Treasury. It is servicing the two levels of government, but is giving preference to one level of government. you get governors who are coming in. We make noise about that, but sometimes noise also can't help you very much. You get into negotiations, you get into discussions and so on, because that noise is what has got the money sometime in November. So we are negotiating on some of these things, and sometimes I think as time is moving on, we are maturing. The devolution process is maturing. The first presidency that was part of the devolution process is getting out. We now going to get a new crop of leaders in 2022. I am suspecting that this situation is going to change drastically.
Let me ask this question, Bwana Governor. Do we have legislation currently that would enforce, or rather force the hand of the Treasury to ensure that the monies that are due to the counties actually arrives at the time that it should? Meaning, you don't have to ask. It's clockwork, like with the ministries. Is there such a legislation?
Governor, may I ask you, let's take a break at this point and then you come and respond to this question, because we want to take a break now at 24 minutes after 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are live on KTN Home, we are on SpiceFM, and we are also online having a conversation with Governor James Ongwae, Governor from Kisii County and also the Vice Chairperson of the Council of Governors. What is the scorecard for devolution in the country? How has devolution performed? Remember, the Council of Governors will be hosting the annual devolution conference next week, and they'll be looking at that, plus also looking at very many other aspects. We'll be discussing that as well. James Ongwae is in the studio with us, and City has asked him a very important question. Keep it right here for that answer after we take this quick break. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life 24/7 around the world non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
He's full of character, wit, and sense of humor is sure to make you not get enough.
Tukienda mahali unapelekwa out sijui na kulanga lasagna na ujui kuisoma. Imeandikwa kwa menu, nipatie lasagna.
Join MC Jesse as he sits down with his guests for a thrilling, memorable, and insightful conversation. Watch Jesse Junction every Sunday from 4 p.m.
24/7 around the world non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*2# to read the Nairobian e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date, the hottest talk of town, with no additional charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice.
It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi at 15, highs of 21 and lows of 14. Light rain in Nyeri at 13 with highs of 19 today. It's sunny in Nakuru at 15. We'll see lows of 12, highs of 23. 11 will be the low in a mostly cloudy Eldoret at 14, going to highs of 22. 28 will be the high in Kisumu. It's partly sunny at 20, going down to lows of 18. Sunny conditions in Kakamega at 20 with highs of 27. 28 will be the high in Mombasa, where rain showers rule the morning at 25. It's also 25 and raining in Malindi, highs of 28. 17 will be the low in a mostly sunny Kampala this morning. 21 at the moment, highs of 26. 21 will also be the low in Dar es Salaam. At 24, it's raining, going to highs of 28. 8 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 20 and lows of 8. Mostly clear conditions now in Lagos at 25. We'll see highs of 29. And 31 will be the high in Kinshasa. It's mostly cloudy at 23, and that will be the low for the day.
Spice up your life.
All right, we're seeing traffic in different pockets of the city this morning. Still on Jogo Road, still some in industrial area. Lunga headed out then towards Likoni Road. And then we see that Likoni interchange on Mombasa Road quite packed this morning as well. Langata Road also quite packed. We're looking at the roundabout at Huru Highway all the way through to Haile Selassie. And connecting into Westlands in and outbound today, it's moving very slowly. Thika Road also quite some traffic. And it's going to continue for most parts of the morning from what we are told. The Southern Bypass, however, is offering some good reprieve coming off Mombasa Road, which unfortunately is a mess this morning. All right, let's look right into the city at the Globe Cinema overpass. Quite some traffic in and outbound there. Kipande Road taking some of that pressure. But still quite some. Muranga Road also, as you're getting closer to the city, is packed. All right, coming out of Westlands as well, use the Red Hill Link Road. That'll give you some reprieve also coming off of Waiaki Way. We'll continue to look at things and how they unfold this morning. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
29 minutes after 8, Kenya's biggest conversation continues. In the Situation Room this morning is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, C.T. Muga, and Governor James Ongwae from Kisii County. We are talking about devolution in the country. Before we went to the break, Governor C.T. had asked you the question. So when it comes to disbursement of funds from the National Treasury, is there a law that mandates the National Treasury to disburse certain amounts of money within specific timelines?
There wasn't a law, but I am aware that I think the Senate is working on this. I think there must be a bill that is there. And this was also an issue that was properly covered under the BBI. If the BBI had been passed, it probably would have been a fait accompli because it is covered under the BBI. But I do know that Senate, I think I've got a bill or something like that that is supposed to come up. But again, one wonders whether if you have a system that is working, if you are looking at a country like the US, you don't see a straight constitution like the one that we've got here. You got practices, good practices.
You got traditions.
You got traditions. Do you really need a law to compel a public servant or compel a public organization from releasing something that is lawful?
Well, I mean, if you look at there's in some of in this one that you've spoken about, there is the expectation on historic behavior that somebody will do the right thing, right? Can we say the same thing exists here in Kenya? That there is the expectation that someone will do the right thing. You would say that is the expectation. The expectation is in the opposite.
You see, Your Excellency, you are a PS. One doesn't wake up and becomes a PS the following day. It's a long career in the civil service. So you're somebody who has worked with structures and you know how they function and you know what ought to be done. And then there's the element of the obligation knowing that this has to be done because of this and this and this. So it's incumbent upon you to do so. Now, you've now entered politics. Do you think politicians think the same way?
The issue of funding is not a political issue. It's an issue for the executive, it's an issue for it's a technocratic decision. And that is what worries me because as a country, we've been independent for a very long time. And by now, certain traditions and practices should have been cemented where we're doing the right thing in the public service.
Excellency, surely.
Yes.
You're telling me that government officials do not in any way pay any heed to what the executive, who are politicians, and that the whims of politicians don't actually influence some of these things. Is that what you're saying, Excellency?
I think they do, but also is incumbent among those the technocrats to actually give proper advice. Though I suspect that in the broader context of financing, it may well be that those in national government are giving priority to financing and paying off the debts for national government and ignoring those debts that actually belong to counties. Because the monies that they give us is actually to pay debts and for services offered. So this is an issue that, in my own opinion, you probably don't need to legislate if everybody was doing their work.
You create traditions.
Yeah.
Over time.
Yes. Yeah.
But also at the same time, if I look back at what the Council of Governors has done by going to court, seeking interpretation with the Supreme Court on certain matters, that's how tradition is entrenched.
We actually went to the Supreme Court on the same, and the Supreme Court came out very clearly about all those issues.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So and that's how you push. That's how you make sure that these things happen.
Yeah.
But also I want to come back to that organ that determines how much money goes to national government and how much money goes to the county governments. Because this is where the conversation happens even before the budget. That this is the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, where the Council of Governors is there and it's chaired by the deputy head of the executive, the national executive, the others, the CRA and the rest sit in. When that conversation is happening, and let's say in this current financial year, you agreed that counties are going to get 410 billion shillings. What justification is there for arriving at a paltry 410 billion shillings in a 3 trillion shilling budget?
I think that is a conversation that we as Kenyans, and we have asked the Senate all those questions. But remember, even that 410, even whatever is actually agreed on by within the broader context of the IEBC, when it gets down to the parliamentary system, when it gets to the National Assembly, and then gets to the Senate, you again find that those resources, there is a push and pull, and some of those resources are actually reduced. So it's not as if those organs you are talking about are final. Because the biggest problem that, again, you would have is in the National Assembly, not mostly in the Senate, in the National Assembly. I have asked myself, the assemblers, the National Assemblers, those people are actually representing constituencies which occur in counties. And so I always ask myself, what in God's name really informs them? Because if I was one of them, I would probably fight for more resources to actually go to the counties. Because if those resources go to the counties, then they are going to develop the constituencies that I'm coming from. So I have never understood their motivation. Somebody needs to tell me what their motivation is. Because the biggest problem that we have with financing counties actually comes from the National Assembly.
From some quarters, it has been that the belief is then perhaps there is no this behavior then can point to that there is really no direct support for devolution. Would you agree with that? Because if one of the things that is supposed to be the fuel for this devolution engine is funding, and most times we hear about this, that you're getting the funding when it's too late, or that you're getting the funding when you already have debts or services have been offered. And if it is the thing that is going to help constituencies develop, for example, would you see it then as a direct non-support of devolution?
I would not say that is a complete non-support, but it's probably the model of the devolution system that we put in place. Because if you look at complete devolution, look at those countries that have complete devolution, that have look at the US, for instance, look at India. Those that have complete models of devolution, their systems where there is complete independence at the devolved level. They have states. Those states, it's much easier because then the national government doesn't play around. But you have a model of devolution here, which in a way I still thank it, and is a growing model, which is not complete decentralization. Because in the other models where you have those two levels of government, you have states, complete states that are occurring. you don't find this type of things that we are talking about here.
And then you also find that the governors have almost complete power.
Yeah,
if we're looking at the federal system.
They actually, the federal system,
Yeah.
there's almost complete power.
They have real power.
They
Yes.
have real power, yeah.
Yes. You know why I keep bringing the political angle to this? Is because the very same things I've heard the Council of Governors talk about is the same thing that the judiciary talks about. Because the judiciary is always short of funds. You hear of a 23.6 billion deficit, you hear of this. And the moment you hear funds, you immediately have to ensure, or rather, you're more or less guaranteed that the functions of that particular unit are going to be hampered completely. Because in the absence of those funds, they can't function. In the absence of the funds, the county can't function. When the funds are delayed, as you've clearly told us, it makes it very difficult to plan or to do anything. Now, why do I bring in the political angle? It's because it's a discussion that has been the public domain, and we have even hindsight. We can go back into history and see that at the very time when counties were funded, the judiciary also was well funded. Mm-hmm. So are we saying that the function suddenly required less money, or are we saying that they didn't need the money? And the answer is no. They actually needed more. That's why I bring in the political angle.
I think what I would tell you, if you look at those two organizations, you look at the judiciary and you look at the subnational governments, what is happening is those are two institutions that are sort of flexing their muscles and saying they are independent. Those institutions that are flexing their muscles and saying they are independent, that's what the county governments are saying. They are saying that in a broad sense, we are independent, we know what we are doing. And the constitution is clear that there is a level of independence that we have. And the judiciary has now flexed its muscles. It's saying it is independent. And so when that language starts coming in, those two institutions have a very, very serious problem at the moment.
May I contextualize as well, going with a political angle, and say that in the context of Kenyan politics, the biggest brother is the president. And those at the national level. And we can count them, they're about 5 or 6. And that everybody else is basically aligned to one of the 6. Whether it's a governor, an MP, an MCA, is basically looking at, you will draw a line taking them to Uhuru Kenyatta, to Raila Odinga, to Kalonzo Musyoka, to Musalia Mudavadi and the others. It's the same thing that I want to put to you, that even as you try and, exert your own independence and all, you're still feeling that I owe my position to Raila, to Uhuru. So I will not really argue if Uhuru says this is the direction we are going. I sort of have to recoil and just sit back.
Toward the party line?
Yeah.
You could be true, about 50 or 60% true, that depending on the party line, it probably would also muzzle you in a sense that if you have something that you probably are in the party line that is aligned to the presidency, then you would be slightly more careful. I think, to be fair, I can argue here, but to be fair, politics is politics. They say politics is about interest. They say politics is the art of the possible. They say a lot of things about politics. But you must give it to the governors that have been there over the last 10 years. We've fought for our space. We've tried our best. And I think now devolution is a reality. It has its problems, a few of the problems that we are talking about, that these are man-made problems that can be resolved. And that's why I told you that depending on who becomes president after 2022, if you get somebody who is pro-devolution, and I don't want to tell you who it is because I probably will tell you my own choice. You get somebody who is pro-devolution, you can be sure that this country will go very far. So what we will need to put in place is to put in place measures that ensure that devolution is properly implemented. Yeah.
There's a question that CT would like to ask you, and I'll ask it on his behalf.
Please go ahead.
And this is on own source revenue. Because all the time we're talking about money coming from the national treasury, and we always ask ourselves, but counties also have a way and mechanisms of raising their own revenue. What do you respond to that? Have we seen an improvement in own source revenue modalities from counties in the last 8 years?
I'll give you an example. If you're looking at own source revenue, you are looking at probably let's start with where most counties would get the bulk of the money. You're looking at land rates. You look at land rates, it's only those counties that have high levels of urbanization that would actually get the bulk of the money. If you are looking now, you look at Kiambu, look at Nakuru, look at Mombasa, look at Kisumu, those with high levels of urbanization. Those are the ones, because the other bulk of the land is rural land, so you can't go and start putting land rates on our brothers and sisters at the local level. Then the second level is you go into markets. You taxing mama mboga. You taxing border. What are you actually talking about? These are people who are living from hand to mouth. So how much are you taxing them? In my own case, you are looking at, and we discussed with the border people and agreed on a quantum, an annual quantum, probably about, I can't remember, it should be either 300 or 400 shillings per annum. I mean, what are you talking about? How much money are you going to collect that would actually get you to the levels that you are talking about? So that's why I'm saying that if you are looking at counties, for instance, you go to Machakos County. Machakos County starts from almost from here where we are sitting, 2 kilometers from here, you're into Machakos County. So the whole of Earth River, you are going all that way. You're dealing with very, very major industrial developments and so on. So there is a problem with own source revenue. Yes, those counties that have resources, you're going to Narok, they are probably getting resources from the national park, from those national parks and so on. Those would raise quite a lot of revenue. So I would tell you, yes, you can improve on revenue, but unless the revenue sources are changed, it's very, very difficult for county governments. There are some that are advantaged, there are some that are disadvantaged.
You see, the yardstick I would think of, to add on to the question that I asked you through Eric, is this. There were councils before counties, and there are clear records of the revenue collections within the councils. Now, I have it on authority that there are counties, I will not mention counties, that were started collecting less than the councils were actually collecting when the councils were in force. And then there was talk of automation, because that was supposed to be the magic bullet or the magic wand that would now, silver bullet, magic wand, yes, that would now guarantee that the revenue would be collected adequately. I agree with you. You cannot compare Kisii and Mombasa. You cannot compare Nyeri and Kisumu. You cannot. But you can compare what they have done in the past and what they are doing now. So my question would be, have we seen a significant rise in own source revenue collection in the counties since they took over the councils, from the function of the councils rather?
Yes and no. In some counties, there has been an exponential increase. In some other counties, no. And it probably also has to do with the whole broader issue of enforcement. The local government at that time was part of national government. So even enforcement, national government was involved in ensuring that there was proper enforcement in revenue collection. The problem that county governments have got is a broader issue of also of enforcement. There is a big problem of enforcement. We are trying to put in county courts and other things to see how best this can help us. So our biggest problem is actually enforcement, not anything else.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room then, healthcare. Provision of healthcare is a devolved function. Counties are in charge of personnel in the health service. And since 2013, we have seen strike upon strike by healthcare workers from all cadres, be it nurses, clinical officers, doctors. And then also, we have seen some development in terms of, establishment of some structures. And then the question has been, those structures have been put in place, and we call them hospitals. Do they have adequate staff? Do they have the requisite equipment? Why is healthcare such a hot potato for counties to manage?
Thank you very much, Eric. And It's nice you brought in healthcare because at the period of the strikes, I was the chair of human resources, labor and human resources in the Council of Governors before I gave it up and became the vice chair. Let's start with the developments before we come to the negativities. From the time that we took over, health services has completely and absolutely improved in all the counties. And I'll tell you why. If you look at all the counties, what we found on the ground, first of all, the budgets in the counties. Like in my own case, Kisii County, I think about 45% of my budget is going to health services, which means that I'm crowding out agriculture, I'm crowding out roads, I'm crowding out urban development, I'm crowding out youth programs, I'm crowding out water, I'm crowding out quite a lot of issues to ensure that I put health services on a good map, because with a healthy population, then you can actually have people that are vibrant, that are able to survive on their own. And that 45% for me, and let me give my example because I'm sitting here right now. If by the time that I went to Kisii, there were only 2 specialists. Now I have over 40 specialists in the various areas of medical specialization, whether you're looking at oncology, whether you're looking at pediatrics, whether you're looking at general physicians and so on. I have over 40 specialists. I have employed, there were only about 16 doctors. I have over 170 doctors. I have sent for postgraduate training for them to be specialists, 67 officers, medical officers. So in the next 1 or 2 years, I'll be having close to 70 or 80 medical specialists there. Now, the bed capacity was about 400 when I came in. The bed capacity at the moment is 900. I'm putting up a mother child, which is almost complete, a 350 bed capacity that is going to take care of only mothers and children. It's a big capacity with about 3 lifts. A very big, major, humongous capacity thing that we're putting up. There was no mortuary to talk about. I have a 100-body mortuary with the best cooling facilities probably in Western Kenya, which rivals any like Lee Funeral Home, and you can take that to the bank. What I'm saying is the truth. So we have those facilities at the local level. We are putting facilities at the sub-counties, and that happens for all the... You go to Kakamega and see the type of facilities that they're putting there. So in health services, cumulatively, we have increased the number of health workers. We have increased the number of facilities. We are offering close to 60% of health services are being offered by the facilities that we have at the local level. Of course, the others got private facilities, faith-based facilities, and non-governmental facilities. They also offer services in a broad context. So basically what I'm saying is you go to counties, there are cases of counties in northeastern that had not done surgeries, certain specific surgeries that where you're seeing surgeries now. So we employed very many doctors. On the paramedical staff, whether you're dealing about nurses, whether you're dealing with clinical officers, you are dealing with all these officers. There are 17 paramedical specializations. We have also increased staffing. In my own case, I increased the number of nurses by almost between 800 and 1,000. So this has happened. So in health services, just to show you what, there is no county that is giving less than 30% of its budget to health. Not even one single. You go and check, you can call me back if I'm saying a lie. There isn't even one county. For me, I told you I'm giving over 44% of my budget to health services. I mean, I'm aware that I'm crowding out these other services, but so be it.
Because this is important.
Because health is important. A healthy nation is a productive nation.
So why is it that you think, Governor, the loudest noise that comes from the counties is still on the provision of healthcare?
is it, do we really have noise on the provision of healthcare, or do we have problems with health workers?
You see, when health workers are not at work, it's about provision of healthcare.
Is that about, then, but you also asked a question about the health workers. The health workers, when we came in, we went into negotiations. They demanded more money. And I can tell you that for the last 10 years, I think their salary has doubled. And that you can also take to the bank is a fact. I think that the prior years when they were a bit worried about devolution, I think the health workers have passed that. They were a bit unclear about devolution. They were a bit worried about devolution, but I think that has settled in. We have reached a stage when I think we are stabilizing not only in the health sector but the entire labor relations in county governments. I think is becoming stable, and you'd want to see a situation where you are sitting on the table with the workers, where they actually don't go on strike. You sit on the table with them, you negotiate, and they also accept the realities of the country that they are living in, that you, even in your own house, you can't go and buy meat if you actually don't have money. You have to agree with your wife that we have no money. We have to find a way out. You have to take mboga. The best way is, if you want your proteins, you probably go and buy 1 or 2 eggs, and that you will have spent about, I don't know how much an egg costs. Is it? I don't know whether it's 10 shillings. So you can spend 20 shillings and have your 2 or 3 eggs, and you would have given your family some protein. So these are issues that even those who are working in public utilities need to understand that public resources are not infinite.
There's something that I would like to ask, Your Excellency. We look at the time that we're in, and there is the future. What brought this to my mind is the recent election in Zambia, where this gentleman has tried 6 times before he actually became president. Okay? That was his goal. He's now 59. He's now president. He has got years ahead of him. You have 2 terms. What becomes of you?
When I look at you, my brother Muga,
yes.
I think that you have had a good life. And you have transited very many positions before you sat here. From the way I'm listening to you and the way you are talking, you're fairly experienced in a number of areas. I worked in government, and you actually said rightly that some of us grew up. I joined government as a management analyst and grew up management analyst 1, senior management analyst, chief management analyst in government, deputy secretary in government, program director, Kenya Civil Service Reform Program. I became a PS. I was in charge of teachers at one time as a CEO of the Teacher Service Commission. I mean, I've been around. So since I've been around, contextually, I never planned any of those things. I think I would see the hand of the Almighty in all that was happening. And they even say, even in leadership, really, it's God who gives leaders. So why don't we leave it to God to determine our destiny?
Okay, this is the direction that was going.
Has put me in my place. Stop playing God's
role.
Yeah. Let God do his role and you do yours.
Yeah.
I humbly accept.
Kubali. It is God's. It's God's work.
Yes.
Your Excellency, Governor, we thank you very much for joining us today and the conversation that we've had. As we conclude this conversation, there are those that are listening to you and they've been sending messages from Kisii County.
But we have not talked about devolution.
Yes, and that's why I want us to conclude with the devolution conference coming in next week. There are those that are, will be asking themselves, So what's the purpose of having a devolution conference? What are we looking at with the devolution conference? What should we be expecting to come out of such a conference? What would you say?
Thank you very much. The questions that you're asking, the issues that you are raising, it is very good to share experiences. Devolution conferences bring together all the stakeholders, the entire devolution family. It brings together national government because the president is going to be there. You will have all the 47 county governors. You will have all the 47 county assemblers, including their speakers. You will have the Senate. You will have the development partners. You will have civil society. And you basically are going to have everybody there. And they are all going to talk about devolution. They are going to share experiences. We're going to talk about areas where we need to improve. And this, when you see those annual conferences, and they don't only occur in this country, they're occurring everywhere. In the U.S., the governors have their normal annual conferences. All the governors in the U.S., they normally have, in fact, I think it's biannual, 2 times a year. I suspect that's the way it happens. So for us, these conferences have happened. We are going into the 7th annual devolution conference, and it's the last annual devolution conference. We are going to have biannual conferences. We are thinking that 1 year is too short to share experiences. We are thinking that the next conference now is going to be every 2 years. That will give enough period in which to assess, especially the deliberations and the recommendations of the earlier conferences. This year's conference is going to be in Makueni, in Wote municipality, in Makueni County, and the theme of this conference is the main theme is multi-level governance for climate action. The sub-theme is subnational mobilization in unlocking the full potential of climate action during and after pandemics. Now, we thought about 2 things. First, I think we had the foresight because we thought that, especially with the carbon emissions and so on, the world is seeing unprecedented climate changes. This country is a case in point where you are actually starting to have a mini type of winter. And I can see the type of clothes you people are putting on. So we decided that this should be the
theme for this year.
The theme for this year. But after pandemics, we were also well aware that we have the current pandemic that we have. How do we relate this theme of climate action to pandemics? Because if you are looking at climate, you are also looking at a country that is basically agricultural. Kenya is an agricultural country.
Governor, we have a lot to talk about, in fact, with the Devolution Conference as well. Let's go into the news. Time is up. Asante sana for joining us today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming.
Thank
and
you.
Also to our audience on KTN Home who've been watching the top of the hour. Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock.
Thank you.
Has been arrested in Kitengela, where he had been hiding since the incident last week. Brothers Fred Mureithi and Victor Mwangi were killed along with their cousin Nicholas Musa and Mike George while visiting a relative to celebrate his birthday. It is reported that the leaders of Nyumba Kumi led the attack on the 4. Benson Melonye is expected to help police arrest others who have not yet been arrested. We hope that the family gets the justice they are yearning for. Now, Education CS George Magoha has called on Form 4 candidates to embrace technical colleges and shun the notion that if a student is not enrolled in a university, he will not succeed in life. He said this during the unveiling of the university's Form 4 candidates will be joining and the courses they will take.
I'm going to do a course I don't want in the university, like the PSC. Why don't I go and do what I want? For example, if I'm medically minded and I can't become a doctor, why don't you go and do public health? It is nearer to medicine than going to do anthropology, which we'll go and do in the university for nothing. So there's a sensible number of over 6,000 students, 6,600, who have actually on their own gone to technical schools to go and do what they want.
Confusion continues to emerge as to whether Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi is still an ODM member or not. Although indications that he has left ODM continue to emerge, acting chairman of ODM Kilifi branch Teddy Mwambire has denied allegations that Kingi has left ODM. According to Mwambire, ODM has not received an official letter from Kingi on the matter.
Staajabu ukisikia kwamba wamerudi kwa sababu hawajaandika barua ya kuhama kwa chama. Mtu hawezi kuhama alafu awe bado anabakia. Kwa hivyo mimi nataka kuambia kwamba hakuna mtu yote ambaye amehama, na hata Gavana Kingi bado ni mwenyekiti wetu katika ile tawi la Magarini, na bado ni mwanakamati mkuu katika ile kundi ama ile kikosi cha kaunti nzima ambacho mimi ndo nitakuwa mwenyekiti. Ndani ya siku 100 kuanzia leo tutaona tukiwa na mikakati kabambe ya kuhakikisha kwamba chama kinaimarika zaidi.
U.S. President Joe Biden has said that the role of U.S. troops in Afghanistan was to protect the United States and prevent attacks such as the 9/11 and not to build Afghanistan. Biden has said that the U.S. military entered Afghanistan about 20 years ago following the 9/11 attack.
Our mission in Afghanistan was never supposed to have been nation building. It was never supposed to be creating a unified, centralized democracy. Our only vital national interest in Afghanistan remains today what it has always been: preventing a terrorist attack on America's homeland. But our mission should be narrowly focused on counterterrorism, not counterinsurgency or nation building. And that's why, as president, I'm adamant we focus on the threats we face today in 2021, not yesterday's threats.
For 2 decades, thousands of killings have been witnessed in Afghanistan, among them 66,000 Afghan police officers and soldiers, more than 51,000 Taliban militants and other groups, more than 41,000 Afghan civilians, more than 2,400 U.S. soldiers and 72 journalists. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, still continues to build up in most parts of the city. We still have traffic on Mombasa Road, coming out of Thika Road as well. Looks like it's going to be an issue this morning. Still taking stock of that on the different roads across the country, and specifically in Nairobi, quite a lot going on this morning. So, Aerodrome Road, trying to get out towards Bunyala. There's an issue there. Langata Road continues to be quite hot and heavy. Jogo Road as well, as you're leading towards Landis Road and then out into the city. And we're seeing quite some traffic on Enterprise today. So we're watching out for this. And a lot of folks using Enterprise as an option to get into the city and avoiding Mombasa Road. We're going to keep an eye on things. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, that's how you can get in touch. Let's see how we can keep things moving continually this Tuesday.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It is 5.5 minutes after 9. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into the 4th hour. Very good morning to you, wherever you are tuned in this morning. It's lovely day, Tuesday, the 17th day of August, 2021. City, today's proverb.
You cannot steal a head of a goat from the butcher and put it in a sack, for the horns will stick out.
You cannot steal a head of a goat from a butcher and put it in a sack, for the horns will stick out.
Mm-hmm. If you must steal, cut it in something else.
Jeez.
Not a sack.
If you must steal, don't steal the head.
Sack, not useful. Better still, why bother with the head? There's a whole body.
Juicier parts of meat, no?
No. I see the direction you're taking this discussion. You're making me an advisory service for thieves.
Is that not what they say? If you're going to steal, at least,
Yeah, still have issues with this proverb. Somebody who understands livestock very well has joined us in the studio now, okay? And this is the MP for Laikipia North, Sarah Korere. Mheshimiwa, when you listen to this proverb, don't steal the head of a goat from a butcher, and if you steal it, don't put it in a sack because the horns will stick out. Is that a correct representation of what would happen?
Well, I also don't want to give an advisory to the thieves. Lest I be accused. Now that I come from a place where livestock is stolen for real.
For real.
Yeah.
And not just the head.
No, not just
the
the
live,
head.
live goat stolen. Page 16 of the Standard today has a story. 4 security officers attached to Laikipia Nature Conservancy were injured in an attack at their camp on Saturday night. The officers were attacked by suspected bandits believed to be hiding in the vast conservancy. The bandits are said to be behind a series of livestock thefts in the region. During the 10 p.m. attack, one of the officers was shot in the cheek, while 2 others escaped with leg injuries. The 4th officer sustained chest injuries. 3 officers are recuperating at Sipili Maternity and Nursing Home, and 1 was referred to Nyahururu County Hospital for specialized treatment. These are cases that are just common. Every new day we are seeing something coming out of Laikipia in what is now being called, an attack by people who are being called bandits. It's either cattle rustlers, it's either community conflict, and all these things that are taking place there. What's happening in Laikipia?
Actually, what's happening in Laikipia, I can say have accelerated into kind of terrorism. Because I wouldn't want to believe it is a community conflict. As a matter of fact, there is no conflict between the communities, the indigenous communities of Laikipia. But in the recent in the last 3 months, we've seen a lot of mass movement of cattle from northern Kenya. That is parts of Isiolo North, Samburu East, and to the west from Tiati. That is Baringo. And there's been a lot of mayhem, forceful invasion of land, both the large and small-scale lands, the conservancies, the group ranches, the small agricultural holding, and not just land invasion. There's a lot of killings and stealing. And surprisingly enough, there's a lot of government officers have been killed in the last 3 months in Laikipia. So have the local communities. People have been killed every morning. In fact, I came from Laikipia yesterday, and something, really hurt me so bad. Because for the last 4 days I've been home, there's a theft every night. Every night. But last evening, some 4 girls were coming home from school. And just like a kilometer, almost 500 meters before home, there was some cattle grazing on their maize. And when the girls tried to raise alarm, the fellows who were looking after those cattle, who were armed, gave them a thorough beating, actually. And when their parents tried to come and rescue them, they were shot at. At 3
p.m.
In the afternoon. And 4 girls were given a thorough beating by those herders. So to me, I don't think it is herder. I mean, it's terrorism.
So these herders are not from here?
They are not from Laikipia. They are not from Laikipia.
A number of things that you've mentioned. One is that movement of livestock from other counties coming into Laikipia. And then there's theft of livestock in Laikipia.
Yes.
Why are people coming from other counties into Laikipia? Is it in search of pasture? And what does it mean about pasture in Laikipia?
Well, I think the excuses they come in search of pasture, but I don't want to believe that is the real thing. Because I'm born and bred in Laikipia. And for the last very many years, I've never seen, so huge a massive movement of livestock like I've seen in the last 6 years or so. Because traditionally, every county has their traditional reserves, during a drought. They're the lowlands, they're the forests, and it's interesting that now every livestock in Laikipia, in Samburu, Baringo, and Isiolo, are moving into Laikipia. One, I want to believe there is a lot of political mobilization in the name of historical and injustices. And, well, I want to believe there is a lot of political mobilization and incitement, and that is what is happening in Laikipia.
Why would that be? Okay, if you're going to look at the resource that you're talking about, and specifically to land, and Laikipia is one of those counties in this country with huge tracts of land still available.
Yes.
Are you then saying there's a possibility that those who may have been edged out historically would be looking for an opportunity to come in present day and take it back?
I would want to not agree with that. Because personally, I come from a community that feel that we were edged out, the indigenous Laikipia Maasai. And we live in the reserves of Mugogodo. And for the last many years, we've had a way of, having agreements on how to graze our cattle in the ranches during drought. And we are doing it. So it's interesting because the pastoralists of Laikipia are not, causing any havoc. But the pastoralists from outside Laikipia are the ones creating all the havoc. And why I say there's a lot of political mobilization, it's because Laikipia did not start existing in the last 6 or so years. Laikipia has always been there with these big chunks of land. But again, when you look at it, if the only recipients of this violence were the big ranch owners, then we would say probably.
Okay.
But look at a woman who all what she has between her and her poverty is 2 acres of land. She grows some maize and beans, which is, what she used to sustain her family. And those cattle are feeding on those maize and beans. So, I mean, that's not a huge tract of land. So, well, as I said earlier, there is a politics of expansionism because of the creation of the new Laikipia North constituency, which luckily I'm the member of that constituency. Yeah.
Where was it carved from? Why would people be looking at that and seeing there's an opportunity to expand as well and bring in new populations into this constituency? What's the context and the history of that Laikipia North?
Well, the context and the history of Laikipia North constituency was hived from the former Laikipia East and Laikipia West. And formerly, Laikipia East and Laikipia West had split the pastoralist community into two. The current, what we call Social ward now, was under Laikipia West, and the other three, which is Mugogodo East, Mugogodo West, and Segera, were under Laikipia East. So the new Laikipia North constituency was hived specifically because I remember then I was one of the people who actually mobilized and went out to actually look for this constituency, because we thought as a small group we were being neglected by the leaderships then. Because Kenyans and ethnicity, politics of Kenyans and ethnicity, you cannot separate them. So we had a feeling like we were not part of the Laikipia we should be. And we thought it was a high time we also had a voice. But unfortunately, when this constituency was got, it actually became more of a curse than a blessing to the people of Laikipia. Because, I will tell you how. Because, not many people will understand that Maasai and Samburu are two different communities.
What's the difference?
Quite different.
What's the difference?
The difference is in even the culture. It's like if you ask me what's the difference between Kikuyu and Meru. I know there are two distinct communities, but
they're very distinct.
But from where I sit, I think they're
all same.
They're all same.
You see, the reason why I ask, if you say Kikuyu, I would rather you say Kikuyu probably, and the people from Kirinyaga. Because linguistically, for instance, we're talking about differences.
Yes.
What are the differences?
Right.
Culture.
Yes.
What are the differences? Because for many people, like myself, who are fairly ignorant, we think they belong to the Ma community.
Yes.
Now, this is what I'd like you to explain.
Yes, even culturally, we've quite some distinct cultures. And even linguistically, we've got some disconnect here and there. And of course, there are geographically where we are located, because other than the Maasais in Narok and Kajiado, the only other group of Maasai you'll get is Laikipia Maasai. And you know, Laikipia is not like the name of a county, it is the name of a sub-tribe of the Maasai. They're called the Laikipiak. And on the northern side, we have the Samburu, which is a very big community, because they occupy the whole of Samburu County, parts of Laikipia, parts of Isiolo, and parts of Marsabit. And now the politics of expansionism is because the Laikipia Maasai are fairly a small, you know, community, a small community, but only indigenous to Laikipia. Because you can't find them in Isiolo, you can't find them in Samburu, or Marsabit. They're only in Laikipia.
Right.
And our brothers, the other side of the world, that is Samburu and Isiolo, thought probably because they can mobilize their numbers from Samburu and Isiolo, then they felt like they should get that constituency to themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think then, based on what you've just said, because I thought to myself, how is it that like these herdsmen, for example, who clearly are so comfortable to come in and graze their cattle, and there's nobody necessarily pushing them out to the point whereby they can wield violence on inhabitants of that particular area, they're comfortable. Could this be the reason why? If this expansionism that you're talking about, then clearly something in the minds of people who even practice a daily thing, that they feel, well, this is the move. And doing this is just one of those pegs that's fitting in the holes. Is that the case?
Actually, it is the case. And if you go back to the history of Laikipia, in 2004 to 2007, there was a lot of massacre in the western side of Laikipia. And a lot of families, you know, had fled their land. And the people who were, you know, terrorizing them settled on those pieces of land. So, you know, it can be twofold. Number one, it's actually trying to instill fear so that the people can leave their lands and other people can settle there. And then secondly, then there is that angle of political mobilization and politics of expansionism. Yeah.
Now, from what you say, it appears that they seem to be carrying on this activity without any hindrance. It's not as though it's like they're marching forward and they just have people waving at them and ushering them onwards. There's no one more or less stopping and asking, excuse me, where do you think you're going and what are you doing?
Yes, I can also answer that.
Yes.
Because in 2017, actually 2016, it just started slowly like it started now.
Yes.
And by the time we were going to the polls in 2017, it was so bad.
Yes.
And at some stage, the president called on an operation by KDF because the police were literally overpowered by those people.
Yep.
And there was a very merciless, if I may say, operation that was carried out in Laikipia in 2017. And then after that, things were quiet for the last 4 years until a few months ago. And I don't want to say nobody is stopping them because as even when you were reading that Standard newspaper, the administration in Laikipia has tried to. But you know, the people who are coming, and that's why I say this is not pastoralism, it's terrorism. You know, when the security forces try to stop them, they kill them. We've lost so many soldiers in the process.
You know, Mheshimiwa, why I asked the question, I'm looking at a broader picture here. Historically and even in the recent past.
Yes.
What started off and what was referred to as tribal clashes in this country began in that same way, and it was labeled as tribal clashes.
Yes.
Now, I happen to come from a place that borders Nandi. Okay, it's called Muhoroni.
All right.
Okay. Now, the interesting thing about all these clashes and the aftermath is when you talk to your neighbors across in Nandi, many of them had also been attacked.
Yes.
So they didn't know who these people were. But ostensibly, the impression that was being given are these people, the Nandis are attacking the Luos on this side. And that actually was not the case. Now, why do I bring in this? Again, there was talk about people instigating it. There's been problem in Marsabit for the longest time. And also, like your area, it seems to peak as we're nearing an election.
Yes.
So you wonder, is it that the current leadership thinks that they might not get back, or somebody else wants to take it? Meaning, whatever political power they seem to want, they want to get it through what you're calling terrorism.
Yes.
Now, why do I bring in the administration? The people behind these things are known.
True.
They are not. They don't come into the country on the day of the attack and then disappear. They live here. They are known, and even the things they do, they are known. And that's why I asked the question: why is no one stopping them? Because in this country, it is not possible for you to pull such a stunt, and the intelligence and security do not know. They do know.
And maybe even greater than that, which means that then why are they being left to continue? So it's as though we expect these attacks will happen, and then it dies down after some time. Like the way you've narrated the story to us today.
Yes.
That has happened. People in the area have seen that it has happened. It all quietens down by evening. But at the same time, security forces not doing anything, it's almost expected that it would happen, and then the noise would die down after some time, and then we go along our merry way. It seems a bit odd that there's no stepping in or, overhauling of the situation, but it's almost expected that it would happen.
To be quite frank with you, I think I am as frustrated as everybody else is, because naturally I would expect that the security apparatus, have all what it takes to stop this.
They do.
And as you say, it's not like these people are not known.
No.
They are known. And as you rightfully observe, in most pastoral communities, a lot of people believe in thriving well under conflict. And I can say without fear of contradiction, a lot of pastoralist leaders are, sorry to say, but more or less it's like that.
They are warmongers.
They are warmongers.
Or even warlords.
And even warlords. So from where I sit, being the first woman to be elected, I'm from a pastoralist community, from a very small community. I know nothing about the militias. And by God's grace, I got elected in that very hot area and under very hot circumstances.
Yeah.
And if I can tell you, I also went through hell because 4 days to the election, I lost all my livestock. All. Right? And
stolen one night.
Stolen one night, and I even lost a cousin, was killed during the... And, I was now torn between, do I put my resources in finishing my last leg of the campaign, or I put the resources in following the livestock, that I've lost. Losing like 100 cattle in one night, that is almost 10 million.
That's a lot.
Right? That's a lot. And... that was a way of telling me that you should quit, or this,
it was a message.
It was a message that you are overstepping your mandate, and luckily. And from then to date, I think I've lost more animals, And from where I sit, I know nothing about militias or how to get one to protect me. The government is supposedly supposed to protect me, is nowhere to be seen. And not just me, even the people I lead. It is so frustrating when a woman calls you to say, my children have been beaten up by some, bandits purporting to be pastoralists. Somebody calls me to say, the only 7 cows I had, were taken last night.
Yeah.
And then, those are the kind of calls I get every morning.
Which what puzzles me and disturbs me is that you say these people are armed.
Yes.
Does the law allow pastoralists to be armed?
Well,
because I didn't hear any sort of bows and arrows. No, it's guns.
Guns.
Let me tell you, they are not just guns. Even some of them have got more sophisticated guns than our police force. And, according to law, guns can only be, held by our security forces or people who are licensed by the same government to carry firearms. So anything else outside there is illegal. And sometimes back in 2017, we thought, Now, because the response by the security forces is very poor when we are having these attacks, we had a discussion with the internal ministry then, and we thought the best thing was to provide what we call the NPR, the National Police Reservists. Now that the communities living in Laikipia do not have those illegal arms. And truly they did it. They armed some people. We took them through training. They were armed. They were equipped. And for quite some time, that kind of madness went down because the National Police Reservists are more, they respond more efficiently than our police. Because they are community. And in the year early 2019, I don't know who sat where in Nairobi and thought, well, this arming the NPR was a very bad idea, and they decided to take away all the firearms that they gave to the police reservice. I can tell you, the day they asked them to take the firearms, while they were surrendering the firearms at Rumuruti, the bandits were terrorizing their homes. Same day. So the government disarms,
its own partners in security.
Own partners in security, and they do not have the capacity or the willingness to disarm the bandits. So, you leave the community at the mercies of the very ruthless militia.
It sounds like it's a very well orchestrated, very well organized scheme with very serious players in our national government, right?
Yeah.
Because just like you said, in 2017, there were all these operations. The KDF is ordered in, go in and mop up all the illegal firearms, conduct a ruthless operation. Nobody's taken to court. Nobody's prosecuted for whatever has happened.
Nobody's arrested.
Dies down, and an MP is arrested here and there. Sarah Korere's predecessor was arrested, released,
called for questioning, released.
Brought into DCI, tough talking, and then dies down. We are back there, and this is not just in Laikipia; it's in all these other hotspots. So you ask yourself, who is benefiting from this? And maybe you have some insights. Tell us those insights after the break. 29 minutes after 9, Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. We are having a conversation with Sarah Korere, the MP for Laikipia North. What's happening in Laikipia? All these incidences of violence. Ordinary citizens, young children, women, men killed, police officers, security agents killed. Why should we be seeing this? Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
When you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. We don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us to assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality.
We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokovu is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
Cloudy conditions continue in Nairobi at 16, highs of 21 and lows of 14. Light rain in Nyeri at 13 with highs of 19. We'll see highs of 23 in Nakuru. It's sunny at 17, and Eldoret is mostly cloudy at 17 with highs of 22. 28 will be the high in Kisumu today. It's mostly sunny at 23. Kakamega, mostly sunny conditions at 24, coming down to lows of 14. We'll see lows of 22 in Mombasa. It continues to rain, and also in Malindi at 26, highs of 28. 26 will be the high in a mostly sunny Kampala at 23 currently, coming down to lows lows of 17. Partly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 24 with highs of 29. 20 will be the high in Johannesburg, lows of 10. It's sunny at least this morning. Partly sunny conditions at 25 with highs of 29. 31 will be the high in Kinshasa. It's mostly cloudy at 23. Looking out into Beijing, going into early evening, it's 31. Highs of just that and lows of 20. Partly sunny conditions in Paris at 14, highs of 22. 14 and cloudy in London with highs of 20 and lows of 14. And New York now early into Tuesday morning. It's cloudy at 24. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 27.
Spice and everything nice, everything nice.
Spice up your life.
Okay. The roads are moving. At least they're looking a little bit better now. But still, some of those hotspots, trouble situations we're seeing still on Mombasa Road and also some on Gong Road. Waiakiwe is also extremely busy this morning, and it looks like it will be that way for some time. Langata Road also continues to be an issue. All right, looking really quickly then at other travel spots in the city. We're looking at that Kamkunji roundabout area getting into the CBD. It's going to take some time to get out of that. And also coming off Thika Road, we saw it building up quite heavily around Survey, then connecting with Muthui Square from Kiambu Road as well. All right, still keeping an eye on things. It looks like it's still going to remain heavy for some time. Let us know if you do get a good route to use or where you might be stuck. Share the word this morning. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text through the day on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
The
Nairobi.
conversation continues. In the Situation Room is Eric Latif, CT Muga Nduoko, and Sarah Korere, the MP for Laikipia North constituency. What's happening in Laikipia? Not just in Laikipia. So those counties there, Baringo, Isiolo, Samburu, Laikipia, and Marsabit as well, we keep having issues of violence. And not just violence, but deadly armed conflict.
Tana River had the same, but
Yep.
it has died down quite a bit.
Mhm.
The areas of Pokot, you hear in Marakwet,
Yes,
you hear of
Marakwet
such
and-
issues.
Yep.
Around the Elgon area, we also used to hear of such issues, but they've died down. You know, there's a historical perspective to this that I think it would be wise to pay heed to. When Yugoslavia disintegrated, and Slovenia and all the other countries came up, there were people who were doing precisely this. But on larger scale, they were not stealing cattle, they were killing people. Exterminating people. And I think the notion of impunity lends itself to this way of thinking that nothing will happen to you. Oh, that's not true. That's not true. Something will happen. And usually it's when you least expect it and you least want it. But if you look at the political push, forget even the economic one. Leaders wanting to exert and to hold on to power by whatever means. And then doing what they do. You see, what I think many of them don't seem to understand is this same thing can actually reverse onto you. You see, you start off a cycle of violence and there's no telling where it'll end.
Sure.
Is this, though, perpetuated and perpetrated by people just looking to score some certain political scores in terms of even getting voters and all?
Yes.
Or is it thugs who are looking to steal and make money?
Thugs
they
are the
use politics to protect themselves.
Thugs
I
are
think
the-
it's the other way around.
thugs are the vehicles.
I think it's the other way around. I think thugs, people who are determined, that's how they're going to
Go
create
about their
wealth.
business.
Yes. And then they go into politics to protect themselves. You know, you arrest me today, there'll be a lot of
that's
hue and
the
cry,
angle.
and
So-
then you
so
will release
essentially
me.
the thug is the politician.
Yeah, the thug is now going to
But look at it like this. Actually, the thugs are the agents, but the main force behind the thugs are the politicians.
Mhm.
And why I say so, it's because there was a survey that was done, and in Laikipia North, for example, they came up with a finding that 49% of people have never been to school. As in, they have not got any kind of education.
What? 40?
49%. And then in Tiati, which is just my neighbors next door, it is 75%. Right?
Yep.
And then,
So
you know,
have not gone to school?
I've not gone to school.
Even passing by it on Sunday?
Even, you know, I think they just saw, you know, it passing by. But by the way, they have not seen anywhere because there are no schools, and I can tell you why. Then, of course, when you go up north, I think the statistics now are higher. And you see some of these places, they have been leaders forever.
Yep.
And you wonder what have they been advocating for if they cannot advocate for the education of their communities.
Yeah.
Then to me, what I think, because when I was first elected as the MP for Laikipia North, I inherited 2 locations with a population of not less than 4,000 without a single public institution. No nursery school, no dispensary, no nothing. And we are talking about the...
No chief's office.
Now, that is the most interesting thing. There is a chief, of course, who does not have an office. The office is Manyata. The same government that employs a chief and several assistant chiefs in the same location where there is no school. And at the sub-county headquarters, the education officers who do not know that there is a location that exists without a school. Now, my brother, tell me. You know, for those boys and girls who are growing up in those bushes, of course, the girls will be married off. They'll be, you know, somebody's fourth or fifth wife at the age of 12 or 10. Yes. And, of course, the boys will be the bandits in making.
Yep.
And when I first got elected into Laikipia North, I've built 13 schools in those 2 locations. And they have an enrollment of not less than 1,000 collectively. And, you know, to me, those are 1,000 bandits in making in the next 10 years.
Yep, and young wives.
Exactly, and young wives, okay? And when you look at things like maternal death...
But those are not young wives, those are child wives.
Those are child wives. Yes. And, you know, in this country, the Constitution says primary education... basic primary education is a right, and it is free and compulsory.
Yep.
Meaning that it is free, you should take your child to school, and if you don't take them, somebody should enforce you to take that child to school. So with that constitution in place, with those children having those basic rights, there are no schools. How do you take a child to a school that does not exist? Right? So number one, the very government that you are looking up to, you know, to safeguard the rights of those children is actually abusing their rights and denying them their basic rights. So to me, I think the leadership of these pastoral communities has failed in a very big way, because failing to provide them with education and failing to plan is actually planning to fail, and we are failing miserably.
How many constituencies are there in Laikipia?
There are 3.
What's the population?
It's about total population of Laikipia, slightly above 500,000.
And a vast landmass.
And the Laikipia North constituency is bigger, you know, collectively than West and East combined.
And you are in North?
Yes, I'm in North.
That's what I was saying, thugs. You see, this person who's coming in to become a political leader, they are not coming to lead their people. They are coming to use their position to continue enriching themselves using the local resource, which is the young boys and girls and their livestock.
Eric, you have a valid point. You pause for a second. They were already leaders.
Yes.
They were people who were looked up to for whatever reason, and there were people who may have appeared to have resources for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But if the culture Mheshimiwa has just described here is a culture in which they grew up in, then they know all the thugs.
Sure, but then it's also being used to their advantage, because they realize that is the position. If you have a place that doesn't have a school, for example, and you know that these young boys will become bandits, and you know that these young girls will become child wives, then you know very well that I can come into this area because the resources are already available.
There's a time when you had a conversation on the phone with the MP for Tiati, William Kamket, remember? And it's the same things that he was telling us. You go 200, 300 kilometers, you have not even seen a road. Watch a tarmac road.
A road.
Road in an area. There are no schools. There are no chief's offices. All these things are not there in an area. And then a government is just standing here in Nairobi and a CS is saying, we are going to crack down hard on this. And you're not addressing those basics.
Crack what?
It just means that you are sitting here, you know exactly what the problem is because you must have been told over and over and over again. When KDF goes to an area, they also come back with a report.
Right.
Intelligence, they tell you, okay, so the problem, the challenges here include this, and the other. Some of the people who've led security operations, even from KDF in these areas, have even risen to become MPs and ministers for interior.
They have.
True.
And here we are.
Yeah.
So many years down the road. So, where is the problem?
Actually, impunity is one issue. And the other one is, championing status quo. Like, I think to those people sitting in Nairobi, the more ignorant you remain, the better. For whatever reasons I don't understand. And also for the leadership, it's like they are better off when their people remain the way they are. Because I would fail to understand why somebody will be leading a constituency, or if you are an MCA, a ward where there is no nursery school, then I don't quite get what you say when you sit in that assembly. And who do you represent anyway? So to me, I think one thing, the kind of conflict we see among the pastoralists will be addressed largely and in the long last if these people were provided with opportunities to go to school and if they were provided with the basic amenities. Because, for example, now, initially these pastoralists don't settle because you can live here for 2 months, then the next month you are moving. But if they have a school and their children are in school, that is one way of enticing them to settle.
Yep.
Right? When you are talking about the universal health care and the free maternal services, and women are still dying during childbirth, because there is no dispensaries. There is nowhere to take them anyway for safe delivery. Then what are we telling those people? Do they even get the concept of what we are talking about, universal health care? And thirdly, pastoralism, is just like coffee growing. Coffee is a cash crop in this country, and so is Mira. And I think beef industry is also another cash crop, if only it will be tapped into. It's very lucrative, and infrastructure provided for the pastoralists to keep their animals as a profitable way of life. But you see, because of the players, the actors, the people who benefit from these proceeds of cattle rustling, nobody is keen to do that, right? So these guys are just hovering around the globe with their cattle. There is no structured way of keeping their cattle. When we talk about the resource-based conflict, you cannot have all the cattle moving from Isiolo and Samburu and Baringo into Laikipia, because then if we allow that within no time, it will deplete all the resources, because Isiolo and Laikipia and Samburu is equally depleted.
Right.
So unless now we start another conversation about rehabilitating our rangelands, then very soon this resource-based conflict.
That industry, so that
exactly,
because we do this with wildlife, and we know this number of wildlife are sustainable in this level of ecosystem, in this acreage. Same. So you have cattle, but you understand at this point in time, this is what we do with the cattle. In fact, the question has been asked, why do people have to come to KMC? Why don't you build an abattoir in that region? After all, that's where the cows are.
Thank you.
Why do you have to walk? Well, you don't literally walk your cows all the way to Nairobi.
Transport them to Nairobi.
There are many who walk their cows and their camels. Through all these places.
But actually, that's why I was saying there are so many players who are the beneficiaries of that kind of industry that is not structured.
Yep.
Because you find a trader in Nairobi goes to Laikipia on a market day, buys a cow for 30,000, and by the time he's slaughtering that cow a day earlier, after that in Dagoretti, is selling that cow for 60,000. Just one difference is 1 day. So between Laikipia and Dagoretti, you've not added any value to that cow.
Nope.
The cow hasn't grown no more.
The cow have not grown more tails or
just put
horns,
it on a truck.
right?
More kilos.
Of course. So you'll be pushing those guys out of business. And these are not just small people like you and me. These are
They're not just buying one cow.
Big names. The who is who of this country.
Mheshimiwa, you've been an MP 2 terms now. The first time you are nominated, now you've been elected.
Yeah.
Have you raised this issue in the National Assembly? If we went to the Hansard,
Yes.
can we find statements by Sarah Korere saying this is happening and this is a solution?
Actually, yes. If you can go to the Hansard, I've raised it through motions, through statements, through petitions. Even I think on Thursday, I'm tabling another statement to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior. Actually, after I raised a question in Parliament about a month ago, Matiang'i himself came to Laikipia, as a follow-up. And, after issuing very tough warnings and tough talk, and a day after, a person was killed in Laikipia. Then 2 days after that, 3 officers were killed. 3 officers, government officers. And to date, they're still talking tough.
Yeah.
But nothing is happening.
So the theory that talk doesn't actually work then can be proved true here.
Especially when the intention is to talk
to do
and
anything.
not work.
Yes.
What is the best, from where you sit as a leader of the community, what would be the best way to address this in the short term, in the medium term? You've told us the long term is empower the community.
Yes.
Bring in all those services and have them there. Today, what would be the solution that would make sure that guns are silenced in the area?
Today what will make the guns silent in Laikipia, there's no shortcut. The government should mop up the illegal firearms and, catch the fellows, the owners of those guns, either dead or alive. Because I don't know how they are going to disarm, guys who are armed. But they should do what it takes. First, to make sure that the guns are silent, that the illegal guns that are in the hands of the criminals are mopped up by government. Then after that, all other things can be put into place, like dialogue, like, having dialogue between the concerned counties like Laikipia, Baringo, Isiolo, and Samburu. But we cannot have dialogue when the guns are,
They're still active.
Active, yeah.
How about arresting those perpetrators?
That is
because
it.
we'll arrest. Arresting a young man, like you've said, a young man who grew up knowing this is the way of life, a young man who's earning a living by carrying this firearm and stealing cattle and bringing it back and get earning a living is one. But then there's a leadership of this. There are people there's those who are sitting in air-conditioned rooms making millions of shillings. How do we deal with
But
those?
Eric, consider, the question you've asked is an extremely pertinent one, but consider the attitude that those who've been in power have had. Start with the northeastern province, as it was then, I'm calling it what it was. Neglected. It's like they might as well be in another solar system altogether. The area that Mheshimiwa comes from, it's the same attitude. So now, changing that, it's like when something happens, it's like, oh, okay, it has happened to them. It's not given priority. It's as though they are not even Kenyans. I remember being asked once when I was in Pokomo land by a cattle herder from the community called the Wardei. He asked me, habari ya Kenya. You cannot imagine my shock. I was in Kenya and this is somebody asking me. And he was asking it sincerely because Kenya to them is this other place other than where they are. And I'm sure where Mheshimiwa comes from, Kenya is also this other place other than where they are. So how do we get these people to be like other Kenyans?
Actually, that is what I was talking about. Number one, for you to have these people behave, like other Kenyans, make them feel like they are part of Kenya. Because when you come to some of these places we come from, the road network is, it's almost not there. And, even in a county like Laikipia where, if you sit from Nairobi, people will look Laikipia in the eyes of Nanyuki and Nyahururu. But forget that,
there's this other part of it.
3/4 of Laikipia. I remember when there was this... what do you call it, equalization fund was introduced in Parliament, Laikipia was, locked out of it because nobody thought, because those people who are planning in Nairobi, Laikipia is Nyahururu and Nanyuki and, the rest of Laikipia didn't feature. And it took me a lot of lobbying to make sure that parts of Laikipia North and parts of Laikipia West were actually included in equalization. If you come to Laikipia today, the tarmac road starts from Nairobi all the way to Nanyuki, and it will end where Laikipia North starts. And then when you connect Laikipia North to Rumuruti, the tarmac road starts from Nyahururu all the way to Rumuruti, and it ends where Laikipia North starts. Personally, sometimes I'm ashamed when I speak about these things because I've pushed it in Parliament. I even make sure that we factored it in the budget. Okay. And then, when delegations visit the State House and visit the ministers and people are going to ask for this tarmac road, some tarmac road that leads to their animal farms. And of course, there is no budget. We budget in this country. Yeah. And once the budget is done, it is done. Yeah. And when you start giving, things pegged on who have more votes. Yeah. If a delegation comes from Kisi, for example, or Nyeri, then you are told the road that we budgeted for Laikipia has been moved.
It has been moved to Kisi.
And then, surprisingly, I have a road that has been advertised on record 3 times on national newspaper, tender awarded, and then you are told there is no funding. Simply because it goes to North, not Kenya, my friend. It is so sad. And I think much as we are seeing a lot of mayhem in this northern part of this country, I think failure by the government to do what they have to do to the citizens of these places is a major contributory factor.
Your role as a parliamentarian includes also lobbying, like you're saying.
Yes.
Have you lobbied, the other members of parliament from the other 2 constituencies, that come from those visible, nice areas of Laikipia.
Right.
And also the other members of Laikipia County who are wealthy, the big ranch owners. If those people sat and spoke,
enough is enough.
Yes. Have you reached out to them?
I can comfortably say for the last 4 years that I've been an elected member of that parliament, a lot of things have changed. Because for the first time, we even have a tarmac road ongoing. As I mentioned earlier, we have 13 schools in locations that had no schools. Yeah. Of course, it is not. It's not my effort alone. It's in partnership with everybody else, including my colleagues and the investors in Laikipia. And a lot of people of goodwill. There are a lot of people of goodwill in this country. So I believe with the right attitude and with the right focus, things can be changed.
We've seen, even most recently with other things in this country, that, the more noise you make and the more agitated you seem to be, especially on the other side of government, I'm going to call that from, citizen side, that, things can move. The more noise that's made, the more visible noise that's made, things can move. Is there still some strength that you have, Mheshimiwa, to say that you can continue?
I can tell you for free, it's not the amount of noise you make, it is the amount of votes you can bring to the table. I can tell you that for free. If you look at it today, the tribal mobilization that is going up in this country, that this region is mobilizing versus this region and this region is mobilizing in this region. And for the small communities of this country, where do we get ourselves in?
BBI.
I'm sorry.
In fact,
that's what we were told.
In fact, I was going to say you have a county government.
Yes. But again, within the county government, as I mentioned earlier, Laikipia constitutes 3 constituencies. Laikipia North, where I come from, has got 46,000 registered voters as at last general election. Laikipia West have got 120,000 registered voters. Laikipia East have got about 90,000, about 90 plus registered voters.
You're the junior sibling.
So I am the junior sibling.
It's about the
of course, the same marginalization that was, done at the national level has been
It comes
devolved.
Down. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, have been devolved to the county governments because every governor will say, okay, so if I put this much into this, what is the
will I have
returns?
left?
Yep.
And unless we have people who will, politicians who will serve people for what, based on what they need. Sometimes, I use the Nanyuki Thika Road when I go to Laikipia. And the dual carriage from Maragua all the way to
all the
Nyeri
way.
is going all the way. Personally, I have no problem with that because I'm a user of that road. But honestly, when
Why
we
not
have
keep going?
When you have no tarmac at
when
all.
we have no tarmac at all in Laikipia North, and I know because I sit in that I sit in that parliament and I sit in the budget committee. I know the budget for Doldol and Nanyuki Road has been there since 2003.
Every
And
year.
this one that just came up the other day is being implemented so fast. So I can assure you, my sister, it's not about the kind of noise you can make. It is about what you can bring on the table.
It's the nature of our politics. Speak now to Kenyans who do not know much about what's happening in Laikipia North. Just create that aware. What would you like to tell Kenyans? What kind of rallying and support would you like?
Well, what I would want to tell Kenyans is, number one, tribal animosity in this country will not take anybody anywhere. And as a leader, you would rather be out of office if the only thing that can keep you in that office is violence. So I also want to, to plead to the security apparatus that they should not leave the people of Laikipia under the mercies of the armed terrorists. Because I think it's our constitutional right to be protected by the government of Kenya. So what I want to ask, especially the people of Laikipia who are listening to me today, is that as a leadership, we are not giving up on looking for short and long-term solutions to their security problems. But I also want to urge my colleagues and my counterparts and the leadership of the 3 counties involved that it is the high time, they do what is right. They lead their people in the right direction, because one thing I know, actually 50% of the livestock that is terrorizing Laikipia belong to the who is who of Samburu and Isiolo. Politicians, government officers. In fact, the other day, some livestock were confiscated in a certain farm, and a very senior person who sits in government called. To say release the animals.
Because mine are involved.
Yes. So, it's so sad and it's shameful that the people of Laikipia must suffer for other people in the hands of others.
Sarah Korere, MP Laikipia North, thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Asante sana. City, take us away with the day's proverb as we say goodbye.
You cannot steal a head of a goat from the butcher and put it in a sack, for the horns will stick out. All these fellows who are trying to steal the heritage of Laikipia,
Wajue.
their horns are sticking out.
We can see it.
them.
Yes.
Very good. Have a lovely day, folks. It's now 10 a.m.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life